Confirmation of the 3-pound marine bird consuming the 400-pound feline has biologists scrambling to determine the new predator-prey connections between the planet's billions of organisms.
We seem to be experiencing some sort of cross-species dietary free-for-all.
Scientists say that the killing of the healthy, full-grown lion by a typical osprey specimen has lent credibility to recent reports of a deer seen grazing on a nest of squirrels in Wisconsin, as well as a claim made by a group of Japanese fishermen who say they witnessed 300 million krill devouring a 40-ton humpback whale. In other news, NASA acquires the moon for an upcoming Kennedy Space Center exhibit. A radio DJ invites the whole town to some bullshit, and assuming the many universes theory of quantum mechanics is accurate, the review you've just seen will remain relevant in another reality for all eternity. For more, visit theonion.com/newsbeat.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. But we will be talking to Eric Brakey, the new, I called you president, but that's not exactly correct, is it? You're the executive director of the
Executive director is right.
Executive Director of the Free State Project. I should have asked right before I went on the air, but I was messing with the cameras, so you can't see the picture of him, but you can also Google what he looks like if you want. Eric Brakey is... sorry, let me unmute you there, Richard.
He's a very handsome man.
Nice. Very sweet.
I'm so flattered. People can't see, but I'm blushing.
Well, at least they can hear you. I think most people maybe listen on the radio instead of streaming, but... I mean, until after
this
the
is
show.
a radio show.
So
it is.
Yeah.
For now.
It's Free Talk Live. And I didn't mention who else is on the show with me. It's me, Bonnie.
Lori.
And Richie Rich.
And we're talking to Eric Brakey from the Free State Project today. One thing I really liked when I saw his intro for his show, and what is that show, Eric?
The Porcupine Report, every Wednesday at 7.
The Porcupine Report, it shows a intro before he goes on, and I like that he calls himself a renegade statesman. And I actually said that on the show like last week. I talked about that. I went on his show and talked about Ian's situation, which you can go to freeian.org to learn info on that. But I liked that he calls himself a renegade statesman because I think there needs to be, I think if you're a libertarian getting into the government, you need to constantly put that disclaimer out there where it's like, I'm not just a senator, which we're going to get into that. That's what you did in Maine. But I'm here to F things up and not here to be a regular senator. So
I hope so, because all of the Free State Project representatives that I talk to, and again, I don't talk to a lot, right? They talk a good game amongst the group, and then they act like statists when they get into office, when they're in their office.
Not Matt Santonastasso. I'd say 0% with him.
Okay.
And I think 99% good for Jason Gerhardt, and one thing we just slightly disagreed on that he was doing. I think there are lots of good ones, and I think overall they're doing more good than bad, but then there are some that I've met that they start off good, and then it seems like they're going bad from my perspective, but...
They lean on political capital. We can't do the freedom stuff, the real freedom stuff, because we have to do the less freedom stuff later, and we need the support of the non-freedom people to do the less freedom stuff later. So we're going to do the non-freedom stuff now, so we can do the less freedom stuff later, instead of just doing the freedom stuff at all.
Yeah, because they're afraid to get ousted.
Did you experience any of that in the Maine Senate?
Well,
Maine as in state of Maine.
Yeah, sorry, the state.
We didn't have nearly the concentration of Liberty legislators in Maine that exists in New Hampshire. So I'm still learning a lot about the New Hampshire legislature and all the 98 Liberty legislators that just got elected according to the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance's standards. But I would say certainly from my experience in the Maine Senate and and working with a number of good people who are in the House, is there's always the temptation of the dark side, right? There's always the temptation to try to, to think that the way that you're going to be effective is by forming cozy relationships with people in politics, with the other legislators and the senators, and this kind of I scratch your back, you scratch my back mentality that is a lot of how things work inside the Capitol.
Yeah.
But that's not how you get liberty done, because at least in my experience, the way that you advance liberty in a political body is you have to be willing to go outside the political body and engage the public to put pressure on their legislators to do the right thing or lose their jobs. That's how we got constitutional carry passed in Maine. That's how we got a number of good initiatives passed in Maine. You can be loved by the politicians or you can be loved by the people, but you can't be loved by both.
Oh, I bet. It seems like one thing that I hear from legislators, which I also don't know a ton of them or anything, but I know Matt Santostasso pretty well, and he was a senator for 2 terms, but he's not anymore. Well, one thing is that sounds just ruthless is the peer pressure type of stuff where they basically will, well, I am going to treat you differently if you don't vote with me on this thing, and oh, you're going to make us look ridiculous is something they say to people who are trying to make a bill that's more out there in terms of where the Overton window is right now for politics. Yeah, it sounds crazy, and I also just think the more people in there with the express goal of creating more liberty and actually knowing what it means, because like all Republicans say that, but they don't necessarily understand what it even means, like some of them, then the better, because there will be more people at least saying that they're on that side, and then how many excuses if we have a whole bunch of liberty Republicans even in the New Hampshire State House of Representatives, for example. That's the one I'm most familiar with. Like, I've never met a New Hampshire Senate member. I don't know how it goes down there. I know it's so much worse. Even though there are fewer people, it's much more, well, they just don't pass good bills as often. It seems like it's much more serious there. Is that what you experienced in Maine?
I think this is something that, tends to happen when you go from a larger political body like a House of Representatives. In Maine, we had 151 members. Here in New Hampshire, you got 400, right? And it's a lot more, there's a lot more boisterousness. There's a lot more kind of large group dynamics. And when you, and I think there's also a bit more of a freedom to be a little bit more radical because you're just one out of hundreds. But once you get to the Senate, I know there's only 24 senators in New Hampshire. In Maine, we have 35. People tend to start to take themselves a lot more seriously. Perhaps they start to like the smell of their own farts a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And it becomes like this really can become this very cliquey, tight knit social club. And I think that we saw specifically. I don't know, again, I'm still a novice when it comes to New Hampshire politics. I'm not sure what particular examples of concerns you have with New Hampshire House members, but certainly what I've seen from a distance across the border has been, frankly, been very impressed with the things that have gotten done in the House of Representatives with the passage of Defend the Guard legislation, calling our troops home from wars that haven't been declared by Congress. I mean, that in particular was kind of just a real middle finger to the military-industrial complex. But we saw in the state Senate in New Hampshire that they wouldn't even take a roll call vote on it.
Wow.
We had one Liberty senator there, but you need 2 to get a roll call vote.
Wow.
And they weren't willing to go on record on the issue and have to explain themselves to their constituents. So, but I'm told now that after these elections, 4 additional Liberty senators got elected, and including one in Manchester who took out a sitting Democrat leader very unexpectedly.
Wow. Do you know that person's name? Was it Murphy? Keith Murphy?
No, Keith Murphy was the one Liberty senator who was already there. And I think, I'm still,
it's
I'm
okay.
such a rookie with New Hampshire politics. But I think it was maybe Sullivan. Anyway, I think it was an S. But So now, if all goes well, that means that the Senate can't block roll call votes on important liberty issues like defend the guard this go around. They're going to have to go on record, and it's going to be easier to hold them all accountable in election season.
Wow,
So here's what I
heard
want.
that.
Here's what I've been on record. I've said this before. I've said this to their faces. As far as advancing liberty in New Hampshire from the political sphere, right? What I want is this is just a start, right? Propose legislation of things that are already legal elsewhere that is not yet legal here.
That is one thing that, one small subject I thought would make it, what you're saying, where you're coming from, would be a good, bolstering reason to get this one bill I wanted passed, and it didn't. But the fact that you can own monkeys and I think it was more Democrats that stopped it because they're acting like people want to abuse their pets. So the fact that you can't own monkeys in New Hampshire, but you can in many other states, I was like, when I found that out, because I was watching TikTok
If I can do it in
videos.
Oregon, I should be able to do it here. If I can do it in Mississippi, I should be able to do it here.
Maybe this is
And by de facto, New Hampshire will be the most free place because you can do all the things that you can do elsewhere, and you don't have to leave the state to go do it.
Yeah, we should be able to own monkeys. And whenever I brought that up on Twitter, the legislator who even made it into a bill at all for me, he asked for anyone else's animals that they suggest.
Kangaroos.
And kangaroos got added and other animals. And I think maybe that then they started using that bill, the bill that was my idea. No, just kidding. But that bill as the media and especially the Democrats started using that bill as, wow, can you believe what these free staters are doing? They want people to be able to own alligators. I think alligators. I don't remember.
Yeah, why shouldn't you? If you can do it in Louisiana or Florida.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
It's supposed to be the free state, yeah.
Exactly.
Live free or die.
And again, I'm not in the political sphere. I don't vote. I don't do any of that. But that's like the bare minimum I want to see from those people that are.
And you know what? I bet no one would even own an alligator just because it was legal here. I bet almost no one.
I'm sure somebody would.
Somebody would.
But
There's
if somebody
people who
was
like
going
reptiles.
to, when it's so frowned upon, they'd probably be doing it right now, I think.
Illegally. Yeah, maybe.
So, what kind of
you
things...
probably couldn't have the space. It'd be out on the farm, in the marsh.
Yeah, but then it'd be cold, so I think they'd have to be kind of in a tank or something. But,
okay.
So, Eric, what kind of things did you work on? What kind of bills were most important that you feel proud of that got done while you were in the Senate in Maine?
One bill that's very on topic with what we're talking about is I did help a bunch of sixth graders legalize hedgehog ownership.
I can't believe that wasn't already.
Wow.
Statists are going to state, man. Someone long time ago wrote it in the law. You're not allowed, and it's just stuck.
Maine was the only state in the region where you couldn't legally own a hedgehog, or you could, but you had to fill out as much paperwork as you would have to fill out to get a tiger.
Wow.
But the sixth grade, I used to, in my district, I would go out to the schools and I would do this mock legislature exercise with the kids, how does a bill become a law, and take them through the whole process. We take one of their ideas and they all
transfer
form
money,
a committee and vote on these things. Anyway, I will be honest, oftentimes you go into the public schools and you're working with kids, late elementary school, middle school, that their ideas oftentimes are a little statist, but whatever. You
don't say. They've been there for 12 years already. You don't say.
Yeah.
But this one sixth grade girl, she wanted to make it legal to own hedgehogs as pets. And I looked into it a little bit more, and I found out thought it was a very good idea. And I just thought, well, here's a young person who's asking for more freedom rather than some new expansion of government power to, naively try to achieve some ideal outcome. So, so we put it in. We brought up the whole sixth grade class to the public hearing. I'll say usually, it's not out of the question. Oftentimes you do have classes coming up to testify on bills, but it's usually to name the state snack or the state dog or something that's purely symbolic that doesn't actually move the needle, in terms of public policy in any direction. But here was a little piece of freedom these kids managed to win back. So I hope that was a good lesson for them.
That is really cool for them, because they played How Does a Bill Become a Law for me when I was in 12th grade.
Wow,
And
really?
before, not the second before that, which is really weird. It was always focused on like history and hardly on the founding. It was always like, did you know there were these robber barons, and then people had to form unions, and that's the only reason we don't have kids in coal mines every single year.
I'm not gonna lie. I think one of the reasons why I've been able to like maintain being an anarchist is because when I reflect back on high school and U.S. government class, my U.S. government teacher was also the soccer coach, and he was young, and he didn't care. So like multiple days a week, class was just us playing cards.
Wow.
Or him engaging in a chess tournament with like the nerdy kid a couple grades above us. And so
What the heck?
I didn't pay attention. I probably got an A or a B in that class, but I don't remember any of it because he was just like the cool teacher.
If you beat him, would you get the B? And if he beat you, you get the A?
So I'll do a quick divergent story then, because this is like the only time I've ever cut a class, and it wasn't his class that I cut, but he was like the soccer coach, the athlete, and he was always losing. He had a scoreboard. He was down like several games of chess with the nerd. He's like, just because we're always doing nerdy stuff, like let's do something athletic. Bro, you pick a sport and I'll beat you at it. So the nerd went tennis. And they were having like this tennis game during a period where I had a class. I'm like, I'm going to go watch this.
Yeah.
I also have skipped to go watch like a volleyball. No, it was actually when my school was all into badminton.
Okay.
And the kids were skipping to go play badminton, and I skipped to watch this one really big deal that was happening.
This was like the nerd versus the jock, though, and the jock was a teacher, his teacher, for this class, and the teacher took the early lead. The nerd ended up winning.
Wow.
Nice.
So ridiculous that's the forced education experiences we've had.
This was also private school, by the way, Catholic education. So
Oh, okay.
School is only set up the way that it is because it's daycare. It's government-funded daycare.
right, but
There's
the
no
daycare
reason to be there for
the
9
daycare
hours a
in
day.
U.S. government class was like, here, go play cards while I play the nerd at chess.
Actual daycare.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
and
At
so
least
I
they
did-
weren't putting it up.
So I don't care how Bill, because he probably taught it. I just don't recall anything because that's my core memory of that class.
You guys didn't watch what was it called? I know not School of Rock because that was
Yeah.
the Jack Black movie,
That's
but like
the one I'm talking about. I just can't remember.
You mean
what-
Schoolhouse Rock?
Schoolhouse
Oh,
Rock.
yeah.
Yeah. You didn't watch Schoolhouse
Yeah.
Rock as a little kid?
I may have, but
I did
again,
not
like
as a
my
kid.
core memory of U.S. government as taught in school was playing cards while the teacher played chess.
Yeah.
They played me that little kid thing in 12th grade.
Oh.
Or 11th, I don't remember exactly, but
It's still a good learning tool.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it teaches you exactly the wrong way a bill becomes a law.
How it's
right? They don't even
supposed to,
mention
I
corporate
guess.
lobbyists. They don't mention all the backroom deals and blackmail. They don't mention any of those things.
Yeah, but that
Shout out to
was
Woody
such a-
Milks, by the way. That was the teacher's name and the coach.
He's probably listening.
I hope so.
That is exactly the case that people always bring up when we talk about how a bill becomes law. It's they taught how a bill is supposed to, like, ostensibly become a law, but not how it actually happens. And
Yeah.
a lot of the time, it's a regulator who's in the industry creating the law.
There's an interesting video that my buddy showed me of like Joe Biden in the 70s, and he was like casually honest about his role as a senator or whatever he was at the time. He was like, no. What happens is lobbyists come to me and they curry favor and they give me money, and then I go and vote for what they want me to vote for, as part of like this little dynamic between us.
Wow.
And that's my job as a senator. I'm like, he said that.
Wow.
Like this was like a prime time interview in the 70s, and he was like,
couldn't
he
have
was
been dementia by now, or
no,
having dementia.
no, not at all. He just didn't care, and it's like, wow, he was casually that honest then, and it's only gotten worse, and nobody paid attention.
That's almost as
They
bad
still
as
don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Kamala going, oh, well, I have a lot of power as the AG of California. With a flick of my pen,
Yeah.
I can make you wait in line at court, have to lose a day of work. Imagine bragging about that.
Well, why wouldn't they? Nobody does anything about it. They
Yeah.
say these things and then nothing happens. They just
Yep.
continue on with their career.
I couldn't believe it. But then again, most people have no idea how ridiculous even just the court system is. They're just, I still can't believe it. But people really think that the court system is just something out there that's probably doing good. They're probably right at least most of the time. And it's probably fair. And another thing I've noticed about court is that people, I imagine, whenever you say something like, oh, what you're doing, that could be illegal or something, if that comes up in conversation casually with a not court activist, that person will say, oh, if they brought me to court, I would just say X, Y, or Z. I would just say this. I would just tell the judge this. And I don't think people realize that you don't even get the opportunity to just say X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. So my boss is a big fan of the American justice system because he's been able to win a few times while in court. And that sometimes people have sued the state and won. It's like, see, the state doesn't always win, so it's fair across the board. I go, well, clearly that's your experience, but that is not the experience of most people.
It just matters who has the most money. I was listening to this guy today, and it's a YouTube video called Dear Law Students. Alu, the caller, actually sent it to me randomly today, and I started listening, and I kept saying like out loud, like, this is great, this is awesome. And he was saying he started thinking to himself while working at a huge, successful law firm that worked with companies more than like individuals. Why is it that we always win? Is it that we're the smartest and the best? And he figured out that it was just in every single case they had the most money.
Yeah.
So
a long time ago, I asked my mom, I'm like, hey, how much is it going to cost to get an attorney to like try to get custody of my son? Like, you know, when it was more in dispute. And she said, you don't need an attorney. You can do it without one. That's what I did. And I went, Mom, you lost. My dad had an attorney and he got custody of me for way too long. Like, I'm not doing that.
Right.
Just tell me how much it cost.
Wow.
And then things went haywire and it never happened.
They really just think like what it'll be fair. I'll go up there and I'll explain myself and it'll be fine.
Yeah. The truth will set you free.
Yeah.
No, it won't.
So in Maine, what was the COVID reaction like? And did it have any influence on your decision to move to New Hampshire?
Well, the COVID reaction in Maine was as bad as anywhere else. Our governor there, Janet Mills, was one of the worst COVID tyrants in the country. I had actually I was running for Congress during when COVID happened, so I was out of the legislature, and we experienced the whole election date was moved back a month, but of course that was, you know, that wasn't that was not good for that election. But
did that happen in any other states? I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, it was, and that was the primary election, so it wasn't like a date that's set in the Constitution, but like the governor by executive order moved the election date back a month.
Wow.
But people were scared. I know, so I guess the reason I say this is, after my congressional race ended, I went down to Texas for a while, and I was working for Young Americans for Liberty. So I was out of Maine for a bit, but I did have the opportunity to return home to Maine and visit so many states across the country during COVID, which was just fascinating to see the differences between all of these states. And you go from one state, you know, whether you're in like Florida or Texas at the time, and it's like, for the most part, things have mostly returned to normal. And then I would go home to Maine, and it felt like being in the Soviet Union.
Wow, this is our break music. So we're going to come right back and finish talking about this. But it's kind of funny because I did kind of the opposite. I went from Texas up to New England, and I was actually in Maine at first before I went to New Hampshire. But we're going to be right back. It's Free Talk Live. We have Eric Brakion, the new executive director of the Free State Project, and we're going to talk about why did he decide to move to New Hampshire? More Free Talk Live coming up.
Thank you for great money-saving ideas. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Among recent suggestions submitted to the blog, double-check your checking and bank accounts for those trial subscriptions and memberships that have become permanent if you don't cancel them, which many, possibly most, don't or forget to. You may not have noticed small automatic payments. 2 energy-saving tips for the kitchen: if you cover and wrap foods in the fridge, you will prevent moisture from escaping and ask less of the compressor. Use plastic wrap, not aluminum foil. And you should only run the dishwasher when it's full. Several who posted are selling their gently used clothing online at Poshmark or Depop, DEPOP.com. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks on the blog at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Trent Murray reports on the rebels' rapid takeover from Tel Aviv.
A real historical moment here in the Middle East after more than 50 years of the Assad family ruling Syria with an iron fist. Their rule and regime all came crashing down overnight as those rebels who had been making a lightning offensive from the north to the south of the country officially took Damascus, the capital. The real first realisation of that came when they took over the state television and radio headquarters, where an anchor announced to the nation that Bashar al-Assad had fallen and that those rebels were now in charge. What we've seen is a flurry of activity in this really fast-moving story, extraordinary pictures coming out of Syria showing millions of people on the streets celebrating the fall of Bashar al-Assad, but also breaking into the presidential complex, into the residential wing where Bashar al-Assad and his family left, looters taking furniture and fine china and cutlery and even clothing.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's now deposed leader, is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
We have seen several Russian news outlets quoting the source in the Kremlin saying that Bashar al-Assad, as well as the family of the ousted Syrian president, are in Moscow, where they have sought the asylum which has been granted to them based on humanitarian grounds. We also have heard this same Kremlin source suggesting that Russian authorities remain in contact with the military opposition in Syria. We also have heard the same source suggesting that there have been security guarantees issued by those military opposition in Syria to the Russian diplomatic mission, as well as to the Russian military bases.
Here in Washington, President Joe Biden is praising the regime change in Syria. Lisa Carton reports.
Speaking from the White House Sunday, Biden called the collapse of Assad's government a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice.
Biden also warned there's a moment of risk and uncertainty over what comes next. The president outlined continued U.S. involvement in Syria to help establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward an independent nation that serves all Syrians. Biden's remarks came after a coalition of rebels captured the Syrian capital of Damascus.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call. That's 603-283-6160, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Are tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash with bitrefill.com, where you can buy gift cards from big retailers including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Lori.
And Richie Rich.
And we're talking to the new executive director of the Free State Project, Eric Brakey. Thanks for coming on, Eric. I definitely want to ask you in this segment about your decision to move from Maine. That's where you're from, right?
Oh, that's where I spent the last 14 years of my life.
Oh, okay. So you've spent 14 years of your life in Maine, and you were a senator there. Why did you decide to move to New Hampshire, of all places?
Well, I got involved in everything because of the Ron Paul campaign in 2012, and I never imagined I was actually going to go beyond that. But kind of one thing after another, I found opportunity after opportunity to keep advancing the liberty movement in Maine. But at a certain point, after kind of 10 years of being on the ballot and serving 6 years in the state Senate, it just started eating away at me. And I feel like it's not something we're supposed to do forever. That place is, serving in elected office is, it's a pit of vipers. But I felt like I had trained up enough kind of up and coming new liberty legislators who I could pass the torch to and feel confident that the work was going to continue getting done. And I was ready for something new, a new opportunity. And New Hampshire has always been here. I thought, 10 years ago when I was a fresh legislator and was my first year getting constitutional carry passed in Maine, and New Hampshire didn't have constitutional carry yet, I thought that we were going to be in a nice, healthy competition for who could advance freedom the fastest. And we seem to be keeping pace in Maine for the first couple of years I was at it. But then in 2018, Democrats took over everything. And Maine has we've been watching, it's just been hard watching the erosion of our freedoms and liberties and our paychecks in Maine ever since.
Wow. So I want to push back just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Because for whatever, and it's nothing you said, and it's a common theme going through like the liberty movement right now. And that's that, if you're liberty friendly, you have to be a Republican, and the Democrats are now like the anti-freedom, anti-liberty side of things. And that hasn't always been the case, and it doesn't always need to be the case, right? Like the vast majority of the drug legalization happened through, civil liberties and Democrats pushing for that, and thwarted by Republicans in a lot of places, especially the South.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you also have a lot of Democrats who've been some of the stalwart proponents of prohibition too.
And they are in New Hampshire.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, I look at political parties as just vehicles. I don't think you should have any more allegiance to a political party than you have allegiance to your car. If you are getting involved in politics, you should use the vehicle that's most effective at getting you where you need to be to make a difference. And for me, that's been the Republican Party, following in the model of Ron Paul and Thomas Massie and many of my heroes who have kind of blazed a trail down the political path. But I certainly agree. I'm not a partisan in the sense that I say all Republicans good, all Democrats bad. I know a few Democrats.
But it's a narrative that comes out when you say like the Democrats took over, right? And then my hometown went to like crap.
Well,
but that is what happened in Maine.
Okay. That's the thing. So I think it's important to point out that we're not Republicans when we're talking. Like if somebody just tuned in, they don't know anything about us. Maybe it's important to point that out for them. And
it'll definitely be construed that way.
I don't think that I've ever even come out and said I was wrong, but I was so wrong when I first got here, and I got so annoyed with people for not wanting to. Why don't we extend olive branches to the Democrats? At this point, I don't see how it's possible because of all the times I've thought, well, at least the Democrats will back this one, like the animal ownership ones, things you would think would be high social freedom. The Democrats will back them. Oh, all these drug bills, and time after time, they also push them down here. And the thing with Democrats in New Hampshire is they think they're different than a Democrat who lives in California or a Democrat who lives in even the South, because they are old boomers. Every single one of them is like an old boomer who wants to, it's like they're conservatives. They don't want things to change in New Hampshire unless it's to make trannies allowed to be in the girls' sports or something, and that's like it. That's the kind of stuff they want to change. They don't want to legalize drugs. Like most of the senators were Democrats for most of the time, and they're awful here.
I feel like a lot of the things that the Democratic Party has focused on recently has been a lot of identity politics stuff, and that's a big problem for people and why they're so against the Democrats, because they don't care about any of the other things that are important if it's not focused on their identity of race or sex or gender or one of those.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah.
Seems like.
And if you had asked me, like, if we were talking about this 8 years ago, I would have felt much more confident saying yes, there are some, like, at least as a lot of the Democrats who I think have had, like, really good redeeming policy areas that they were working on. I think a lot of them have increasingly felt alienated from the way the Democratic Party has shifted and have come this way. Like Tulsi Gabbard is one example of, on foreign policy, not a perfect non-interventionist, but like was one of the more interesting people in their party. But I do want to make one point on drug prohibition. In my experience, the problem when Democrats are the ones who do champion kind of the end of drug prohibition, which is great. I want to end drug prohibition. I think the war on drugs is a terrible crime against humanity. But I tend to find that when the laws are written by Democrats, they write them in ways that have no bearing or understanding of economics. And so this is where, like in California, it's like cannabis is legal, but the tax rates are so high, the regulatory hurdles are so ridiculous that, like, everyone's still operating through the black market, and the legal market can't compete. Whereas in Maine, I got to rewrite our medical cannabis laws, and because we had a Liberty Republicans involved in the crafting of these laws, we were actually able to apply, like, Austrian economic theory and, like, build a system that recognizes how markets actually work, so that you don't have corporate capture by a few big monopolies, and you have a industry run by small businesses, and there's competition. And
maybe you can help in New Hampshire, at least help them write the law.
Well, because like right now in New Hampshire, you have to go to Vermont, Massachusetts, or Maine to get your cannabis legally.
The laws that they almost passed, were so bad. They wanted, like, state-run liquor stores, but marijuana.
Yes.
And you said Maine has the best cannabis laws amongst those three?
I would say the medical cannabis laws definitely, but I'm biased because I wrote them.
Okay.
In what way is it? Can you give an example of how it is set up to respect the actual laws of economics?
I also want recreational, right? Why does it have to be limited to medical?
I think Vermont and Massachusetts have recreational, but not Maine.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's your problem.
First, I'll say one of the big things that comes up in cannabis policy debates is licensing caps. Like people saying, "Oh, we only want so many stores, so we're going to cap the number of licenses that are out there."
Yeah, I've heard
and
that.
what that inevitably happens is it means that big corporations come in and gobble up all the licenses, and so they get to capture the industry.
Like taxi medallions in New York.
Yeah, certainly, much like that. Or you see this happen in Maine. This is kind of like how liquor stores operate within municipalities. There are, at least in Maine, it's not a state-run monopoly, but there's still licensing caps, and you see it's like, oh, it's all the big corporations that have all the liquor licenses, and if a little guy tries to get in the industry, they can't.
Wow.
They're squeezed out. So I think that I want to give credit to the House Republicans who have in New Hampshire who have insisted on we'd rather not legalize cannabis than adopt a state-run government monopoly model, and we'd rather wait for the opportunity to pass a model that's based on bottom-up competition and a marketplace where people can grow their own cannabis, people can start their own businesses and work within kind of the legal frameworks of the state.
I agree.
Well, is that not the perfection being the enemy of the good?
I don't think so, because right now, me and Ian have pulled for 2 years in a row FOIA requests of how many people have got arrested in Keene, not, the whole state, over marijuana, and 2020 was like 3. And I don't remember all the exact numbers. Ian has that paperwork somewhere, and I need to ask him where it is. But this is the thing. A friend of ours even got arrested recently, like 2 years ago. They handed him back, it's like wedding ring, watch, blunt with weed in it. They don't care at all. The fact that you can buy weed in Maine, I guess,
Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts.
Vermont, and you can smoke it here and not be bothered I think it's fine for while we're trying to get something that's pretty close to perfect, because what they almost passed, the one that they almost passed recently, was going to make state-run marijuana extremely taxed, and they were like, oh, but 8.5% is low nationally. Who cares if it's low nationally? That's crazy high.
But if they pass that, then the consumer still has the option to go to Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, or right down the street to their state-run dispensary.
Right now, they can go right down the street to their black market dispensary. I don't know anyone who has trouble finding weed.
Right, but that's the thing. Now it's illegal.
The challenge is, once you establish a legal model with a state-run monopoly, you're creating a very, very entrenched special interest group that is profiting off of this and will never give it up.
Yeah,
and they will have
never roll
all
back.
the money to lobby to keep it this way forever.
I mean, they probably
So
said
it
the
is-
same thing about the original prohibition on marijuana. It took 100 years to roll it back, but it's rolling downhill now.
Yeah, but in 100 years and barely, like you said, it's not even legal in New Hampshire right now.
Is it decriminalized in New Hampshire?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and that's another thing. Like, we need to decriminalize all drugs. Weed is like my least favorite drug. I barely care about it at all. But I did have one thing I wanted to say about that. When I spoke at a bill hearing for legalizing DMT, it was about, I don't remember how many people are on these committees. Let's say there's 20. Like 10 of them were Dems, 10 of them Republicans. They all voted no. They all said no. These people don't really have actual principles, like that, oh, somebody should be able to put DMT into their body. And then I also heard the cop that day that testified in the hallway. I was talking to a Dem who is just like, he wasn't on the committee, but he's a great Dem for drug stuff, not everything else. And I was saying, oh my God, could you believe what that cop said? And I didn't know that the cop was like behind us. And he came up and was saying, well, listen, we don't want people getting into their cars high on DMT. I've seen car accidents and you don't know what it's like. And I was just like, you really think that people take DMT, run out to their cars while blasted off and start driving? That doesn't happen. It's crazy how ignorant the cops are on this, but they're also lying because they want money to do things like go after drugs. But
And even if they did that, arrest them for getting into the accident and causing harm to somebody else.
And I feel like the people who are going to drive under the influence are going to do it whether it's legal or not.
yeah, that's definitely true. I also I was part of a organization called Decriminalize Nature for a while, and the reason I liked them was because they specifically focus on decriminalization instead of legalization, and they were right about a lot of things. They're based in California, but they're definitely like leftist, but I was like, they're right about a lot of things. And then there'd just be the details. Like I sat in on a meeting once, and they were specifically talking about a bill that was going to be passed in California, but the Decriminalize Nature heads, they were talking to everybody in this meeting, which was Zoom. And they were saying, listen, one thing we don't like about this bill is it proposes that it not be taxed. It proposes taking away the taxes on marijuana. We don't want that. You know why? Because then the corporations are getting not taxed just as much as the little guys are getting not taxed. And that's unfair because the corporations need to get taxed. We want to pass a bill where the big people are getting taxed and the little people aren't, to make it fair. They're so bad on economics that it's like, that's putting perfection before the horse, which is not the saying. Whatever. Then we have the good, whatever.
Perfection is the enemy of the good.
But in a deranged, not educated on economics type of way. And I couldn't believe it. And when I was dealing with that kind of stuff in that group, I just had to, whatever. I quit. I don't care.
If you
deal with Democrats.
If you legalize it, you get one more option. You get Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts. You still have your black market option, right? And you can also legally go to a dispensary in New Hampshire, even if it's state run.
I don't think
and
that's
if you're
some
anti-state
kind of
run,
good thing. It's not like, oh, I get to go and pay 8.5% in a state-run.
you don't have to.
Weed.
You have other
But
options.
you just said that's a plus. I'm telling you, I don't think that's a plus.
For
I
someone
already
it
have
is.
all these things that are great.
Yeah.
Fine. Like these things exist, and now I'm going to add one more bad option. That's not worth funding
you
the
don't know that it's a
state
bad
more.
option.
It is a bad option to fund the state with marijuana and keep people out of the market. And in fact, I think it would harm the black market.
Then it has outcompeted the black market.
That's
if the
not
black market
competing.
is so much
that's
better,
not what competing
Sure it
means.
is.
No, it's not.
If you open up a state-run dispensary,
If you tell people you'll go to prison if you're growing marijuana in your house over a certain amount, but we can do it down the
but
street,
you're saying they're
that's not
doing it anyway.
competing.
But you're saying they're doing it anyway. So you're not closing off the black market.
And I
The black
think that
market will
because
run
they
in
couldn't do
parallel
that
if it's better.
openly, they would be run out because there's now these people with this interest to be fighting against them. But right now, it's fine. See, that's actually another example of why it'd be worse, not better, to have legal weed that is run by a state. Now the state has an actual, hey, we really got to crack down on this, and they're not cracking down now because they just don't care about weed anymore.
Then just legalize it.
Well, yeah, if there's a legalization bill, it's different.
You don't want to legalize it?
I said we all want to legalize it, but if there's a question of like, is establishing a state-run monopoly worse than the status quo where we are right now?
It's not a state-run. It's not a monopoly, though. I've already listed like 4 competitors, right? If it's not like right now, at least in Massachusetts, right? Like the nicotine tax is great enough that people come up from the other states to buy cigarettes in New Hampshire, and then they cross the border back into Massachusetts or Connecticut or whatever, right? And those states want their citizens to pay the tax upon re-entry into their state after buying the product here in New Hampshire.
Then I guess nothing's a monopoly because of the fact that people can break laws.
Well, it's not. Well, okay, fine if that's the position you want to take. But my point is,
It's not.
my point is that if you have a state dispensary, right, and the option to go out of state is still greater, then people will still choose that option. But some people, consumers, will now be able to make a choice based on their individual interest and values that they're not allowed to make right now.
I don't think that people being lazy people getting to have weed easier justifies using the force of the state against people, including funding it.
But if it's funded through the taxes that people consume, right, then you can avoid the tax by not consuming, and you can avoid that by going to Maine, Vermont, or Massachusetts.
Yeah, my idea wasn't that we would be forced to be taxed. It's just that, now we're another way to fund the government. Great, that's bad.
So if there are all these other options, though, like Maine and Vermont and Massachusetts and the black market, why rush it so that the state is running it? Why not just leave it the way it is until you get what you want?
Because there are certain people that value it, that now you're placing your values above theirs and denying them the opportunity to get it how they want it.
Denying them the opportunity to point a gun at me.
They're not pointing a gun at you. They're just going to like the state-run dispensary and paying their tax money to the state.
If I wanted to create a weed store, then they're pointing a gun at me.
You currently can't create a weed store.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Versus a good bill. And besides, it actually is. If I wanted to create a weed store and be black market right now, I think I could do that pretty easily without getting harmed. But as soon as they create their, this is obviously hypothetical. I don't actually want to do that.
Okay.
But if I wanted to, I could do that pretty easily right now. But as soon as state-run mafias on weed are on my street, I'm going to get raided. But the other thing is,
that's the part I disagree with, and you've already said that the black market will still thrive, so it's just one other option.
It'll still exist.
Well, but there will be an economic interest group now in mobilizing the police to crack down on the black market, because now every time you purchase from the black market instead of from the state monopoly store, you're cutting into their revenues.
Yes, the same as if you went out of state to Maine, Vermont, or Massachusetts.
But they're not getting any revenue on it now.
Right.
So there isn't the direct incentive for the state to crack down on the black market in the same way as it would be if the state was profiting off of a state-run monopoly.
Say that last part again, because I tried to follow and I missed it.
So if there's a state-run monopoly that the state is getting revenue off of, and someone is operating a black market cannabis sales,
yep.
Now the state has a direct incentive to use the police to crack down on the black market in a way that they don't have right now, because they're not getting any money off of it.
But they
the
can still crack down on the black market because it's still illegal.
They can, but they haven't been.
Okay.
Well, I did want to give you an opportunity to talk about PorcFest while you're on, Eric. Why don't you just tell the listeners what PorcFest is? I'm sure all of our loyal listeners already know what it is, but in case anyone doesn't.
We are gearing up for PorcFest in June. All are welcome. It is our theme for this year is going to be Taste the Revolution, and we're bringing back an old tradition of a cook-off around the campground to get people to go and meet their neighbors and sample dishes and vote on the best dish of all of PorcFest. But that's going to be happening in June. Of course, we're going to have great speakers and great community and the opportunity to experience what kind of a Liberty for Real pop-up community is like for a week. And tickets are on sale now at porcfest.com with a C, not a K, because it's not a barbecue festival. But with Taste the Revolution, maybe we will bring some good barbecue this year.
Does that mean we're leapfrogging Liberty Forum, or is that still a thing usually in February?
Liberty Forum actually is going to be in April this year, late April. And tickets are on sale for that as well, nhlibertyforum.com.
Is that going to be in Manchester?
No, actually, it's going to be in Concord.
Concord. Oh, that's new.
At the Grapponi Conference Center. We've never had it there. Beautiful facilities. We're going to be having some great talks. We're also really inviting people to come and talk on the theme of Liberty for Real, particularly focused on what are the challenges that emerge as a society transitions to become a Liberty for Real society, and how do we overcome those challenges?
So I want to throw out a personal recommendation right now, because they've never been to a Liberty Forum and never been invited to speak. Ken Schoolin and Lee Schoolin speak all over the world at Liberty conferences, and I want somebody in charge to invite them to speak at a Liberty Forum, if not this year, if it's booked at some point in the future.
Dennis Pratt's running it. I bet you could talk to him. What do they do? Lee and Ken Schoolin? Ken
Schoolin wrote the book, The Adventures of Jonathan Gullible, which was the basis for the YouTube video, the Principles of Liberty, or whatever that video that we all watched back in the day was. And Lee Schoolin's life parallels Lily Tang Williams almost down to the T, which is she escaped from Mao's China, and literally escaped, and now speaks all around the world at Liberty conferences about her experience then, and how you can get more liberty now. And the values of liberty over the badness of communism, etc.
Do you have do you have a Twitter people could visit, or anything else you'd rather them visit to learn more about you, Eric?
Yeah, people can follow me at Senator Brakey on Twitter. I'm fairly active there.
Awesome. And the first place I ever saw Lily Tang Williams speak was a Liberty Forum. Liberty Forum is sometimes one of my favorite of the things to go to, and I think it's going to be really good at this Grapponi place in Concord. I've been there before. And also PorcFest, if you want to go to that food competition that's going to happen at PorcFest, definitely check that out. And the Free State Project, think about moving here for liberty in general. It's Free Talk Live, more coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Trent Murray reports on the rebels' rapid takeover from Tel Aviv.
A real historical moment here in the Middle East after more than 50 years of the Assad family ruling Syria with an iron fist. Their rule and regime all came crashing down overnight as those rebels who had been making a lightning offensive from the north to the south of the country officially took Damascus, the capital. The real first realisation of that came when they took over the state television and radio headquarters, where an anchor announced to the nation that Bashar al-Assad had fallen and that those rebels were now in charge. What we've seen is a flurry of activity in this really fast-moving story, extraordinary pictures coming out of Syria showing millions of people on the streets celebrating the fall of Bashar al-Assad, but also breaking into the presidential complex, into the residential wing where Bashar al-Assad and his family left, looters taking furniture and fine china and cutlery and even clothing.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's now deposed leader, is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
We have seen several Russian news outlets quoting the source in the Kremlin saying that Bashar al-Assad as well as the family of the ousted Syrian president are in Moscow, where they have sought the asylum which has been granted to them based on humanitarian grounds. We also have heard this same Kremlin source suggesting that Russian authorities remain in contact with the military opposition in Syria. We also have heard the same source suggesting that there have been security guarantees issued by those military opposition in Syria to the Russian diplomatic mission as well as to the Russian military bases.
Here in Washington, President Joe Biden is praising the regime change in Syria. Lisa Carton reports.
Speaking from the White House Sunday, Biden called the collapse of Assad's government a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice.
Biden also warned there's a moment of risk and uncertainty over what comes next. The president outlined continued U.S. involvement in Syria to help establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward an independent nation that serves all Syrians. Biden's remarks came after a coalition of rebels captured the Syrian capital of Damascus, prompting Assad to resign. I'm Lisa Carton.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more on the weekend's extraordinary events in Syria and the sweeping from power of dictator Bashar al-Assad. US President-elect Donald Trump said over the weekend that he does not believe the United States should be playing any role, arguing on social media that this is not our fight. But in fact, the US is already deeply engaged in Syrian affairs. There are 900 troops in the northeast of the country supporting Kurdish fighters there, and American sanctions on Syria's oil and gas sectors are so comprehensive that to all intents and purposes it has a stranglehold over the country's economy. Joshua Landis heads the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Oklahoma.
There are heavy American sanctions on this. America owns all the oil and gas, so that's not coming to the Syrian government. And so Assad has not been able to rebuild. We'll have to see what the new one brings and whether America will lift those sanctions, return oil and gas to the Damascus, or keep it for the Kurds. These are going to be big questions. They're going to look to the international community to lift those sanctions.
He spoke to Canada's CBC. Many observers believe that after Bashar al-Assad and members of his minority Alawite sect in Syria, the Kurds may be the biggest losers from this weekend's events, with Turkey watching closely and hoping to neutralise Kurdish hopes for autonomy. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Bashar al-Assad is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. And in Washington, US President Joe Biden is praising regime change in Syria.
Here is the Onion Week in Review Transportation Edition. In Albany, a Greyhound bus crash claimed 30 miserable lives Tuesday, finally putting over 24 deadbeat fathers, penniless drug addicts, and hapless bastards out of their misery. Emergency crews at the scene of the merciful accident described the sea of fast food bags, candy bar wrappers, and losing lottery tickets surrounding the crash site as utterly tragic, adding that the scorched corpses inside the bus were, quote, only slightly more lifeless than before the deadly accident.
Evidence suggests that most of the victims suffered during the crash, and for many years before they even boarded the bus. All I can say is, thank God no one made it.
Al-Qaeda is refusing to carry out any further terrorist attacks until the U.S. mass transportation infrastructure is drastically improved, calling the country's roads and bridges a, quote, travesty, unbecoming of a developed first world nation.
We want to turn your bridges into rubble. But if we took credit for making them collapse, no one would ever believe us.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin is a lesson that too many people have learned the hard way. It's always best to get your crypto into a wallet that you control, but not all wallets are equal. Many of our hosts have been using Edge for years to manage crypto, and there just aren't many wallets to compare. Featuring a unique login system that makes it easier for you to access your crypto from multiple devices, Edge is designed to be user-friendly. In a space that can be notoriously difficult for non-tech people, Edge is a valuable tool for novices and experts alike. You can learn more at edge.app, that's edge.app, which features a link at the top for those who wish to learn more about crypto and wallets. Thank you to Edge for sponsoring Free Talk Live, and again, to learn more, visit edge.app. With you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Lori,
and Richie Rich.
And that number to call if you'd like to bring up whatever's on your mind is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And we already have a caller on the line, so I'm going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. Jerome, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Trump train! Choo-choo!
My body lies over the ocean.
Did I lie?
My body lies over the sea. My body lies over the ocean. So bring back my Bonnie to me, to me. Bring back my Bonnie to me.
I love it. Did I lie in the last segment or something?
No. Hey,
He's just picturing you on the ocean in a bikini.
Picturing.
Yeah. I saw his daddy on TV today, and it was very heartwarming and very scintillating, very exciting about how he's going to wreck the economy. And I say, thank God they elected him president again for the first time it's ever been done in like 100 years.
I'm getting a lot of distortion from your microphone, Jerome. I don't know if the others can hear that.
Yeah, maybe you're on speaker or yelling too loud into. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of...
Or too close to the microphone.
No, I took it. How's that? Is that better?
No.
Not really.
Yes. How's that? Is that better?
No.
I think that was better than the original.
Okay. Well, I still hear the distortion.
I still hear some too.
Okay. Do your best, Jerome.
We still understood what you said about Trump. He was on TV talking about how you say was saying he was going to wreck the economy. Is that what he said?
Yeah. He wants to put tariffs on our two largest trading partners, Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Suddenly Democrats understand.
So I'm not going to defend Trump.
That would be a disaster.
I'm not going to defend Trump. And you're right, Jerome. Yeah. Tariffs would be a disaster.
I agree.
The problem with Trump when it comes to the tariff is he understands that it's going to be a disaster, and he has weaponized it. Because in interviews, he has said, right, we're going to put tariffs on them, and like that'll bring them to the table. Maybe they'll call me, or I'll call them, and then we'll talk to each other, and we'll decide whether or not we really want to spend all this time and effort and all this accounting, or if we want to just squash it and eliminate all the tariffs on both sides.
AKA, he's going to get people to do what he wants by threatening them with tariffs.
Mm-hmm. Right. So he knows that it's detrimental, and he's hoping that it's a big enough of a threat and maybe a bluff, right, to get them to change their ways on their side.
No, I hope he doesn't. Because he's a bozo, and bozo's going to bozo. I hope he doesn't, because he thinks he's so smart. This is a guy that's filed for bankruptcy like 6 times. You think in your wildest imagination I would ever trust somebody that's filed for bankruptcy that many times? Oh, by the way, Richie, have you got your $100,000 Trump watch yet?
No, does he have one?
Yeah, he's selling.
Okay.
He's got a guitar. He's got a guitar out there. He wants to sell to you too. You gonna buy it?
That's an unhinged thought process to be like, this is going to be a bad thing that he's going to do. I hope he does it because spite.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm mean like that. Right.
It's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
If he follows through with the tariffs.
Chinese products are every product, and they'll be more expensive.
Right.
It's going to be more expensive for Americans. It's
Jerome hopes
dumb.
he does it though, so then he can be like, "Well, Trump bad."
Yep.
Yeah, they wanted him, right?
That's like cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I hope he makes my life worse so that I can tell you how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
I love taking Jerome's calls,
Democrat?
but I couldn't really take any more of that, and it's just
the
because
distortion?
of the distortion.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm also not going to defend Trump on the tariffs thing. I think it's really scary how he was going on Joe Rogan and saying like, tariffs are a wonderful, beautiful thing. I love tariffs because you can make other countries do whatever you want by threatening them.
He's using it as a weapon. He knows it's bad. He's just weaponizing.
Right.
He is. Thank you so much for the call, Jerome.
It's just crazy victim mentality to be like, I hope it happens.
It's crazy. Victimizing yourself, kind of.
Right.
Like you said, it's cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Get your audio more creamy for radio audio.
I'm sorry. Like, I love talking to Jerome, and I wish when he sang my song, that it wasn't like that. It was creamier.
You have the IP rights to that song?
Yeah, it's my song. In fact, we have Turd Ferguson on the line. Shouldn't
Jesus.
I own the IP rights to that song, Turd?
Don't make him rehash this. It was hard enough to listen to last night.
Did you record the song?
It's my song. My name is on it. My name is literally on it.
I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know what song he was singing. And Jerome has
My
MSNBC
Bonnie lies over the
brainwashed.
ocean.
I'm surprised everyone
My
doesn't
Bonnie
know that
lies
song.
over the sea.
It's a pop song. I'm just gonna.
Bring back my Bonnie to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say
It's not pop, I guess. I
if
don't
it
know
was
what
a pop
it is.
song, I'd probably know it.
We
Yeah,
should
and
make it
just
into a pop
because,
song. Then I'll be a star, even if someone else is singing it. 'cause
Oh
it's
yeah.
about me.
Now you're talking. See, now you got a good idea on your hands there.
What did you
Actually, I
call
was,
in about, Turd?
I wanted to call in to say that Jerome has MSNBC brainworms. I can't stand Jerome. I first heard Jerome call the show probably like 4 or 5 years ago now.
Is there any callers
And
you
he's just
do
been
like?
getting progressive.
Turd Ferguson.
Turd Ferguson. Okay.
Yeah, I like Turd Ferguson. He's a good caller.
Like, I don't like
Interesting.
Skeeter and I don't
And-
like Jerome, but that Turd Ferguson guy, he's really got his stuff down.
Turd Ferguson is interesting and smart and extremely handsome. And
That's what everybody
why
else
he
who I've
is
asked
the
has
best.
said.
Except the girl at the gym doesn't think so.
Yeah. Screw you, Richie.
That's all he's got.
and your Macaulay Culkin name.
Oh, yeah, he was in a movie called that, Richie Rich.
I don't spell it the same.
You want to spell it the same because you want to be like Macaulay Culkin.
You wish it was
I
spelled
used
the
to
same.
I used to spell it the same,
Then you could own that movie.
but it was because I used to read like the comic digest before the movie even came out.
So
that movie was garbage anyway. And
Blank Check was better,
I don't
bro.
know if I ever said this.
Oh.
Well, I don't know if
Come
I ever
on.
said this, but you know Sinbad, who played his bodyguard in that movie. Sinbad actually came into Guitar Center once when I was working there, and he was filming his crappy internet show, trying to revive his career. A lot of good that did for him.
I think he was the bodyguard in Blank
still
Check,
sucks.
right? Are you am I confusing movies or are you confusing movies? Was Sinbad and Richie Rich?
I think. Well, what
I'm
you
not
could do
up on my
is you could
Sinbad.
pull out that beautiful. What you could do is you could pull out that beautiful piece of intellectual property in your pocket and type into Google what movie did Sinbad play the bodyguard in.
Are you doing it, Monty?
And I bet
First
you'll find
Kid.
out that he.
First Kid, okay. Both wrong.
Oh,
Everybody's wrong.
Everybody's
Kid.
wrong.
No,
1996.
Sinbad's just one of those guys that you think he was in everything, but he wasn't in anything, actually.
It's only because everyone says he played a genie and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the heck this
yeah,
guy is.
maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I guess I was. Yeah, well, Shaquille O'Neal played the genie, not
Kazam.
Sinbad. So when people say that,
Yeah,
no,
but
it's
Shaq doesn't even look like
exactly.
Sinbad.
It's racist.
It is racist.
Yeah, well, they're both black.
Sinbad.
Yeah,
I mean,
right,
sorry.
exactly.
First
It
Kid.
is racist.
First Kid has a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's
Okay.
pretty bad. It's pretty sinful and bad.
Yeah, it's a bad. Why do you think Sinbad doesn't have a career anymore? It's 'cause
I
everything
liked his
he touches
stand-up. I
turns
thought
to
he was
crap.
funny.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, just because you're a good stand-up comedian doesn't mean you're going to be a good actor. He's
no
he's
disagreement
the
there.
anti-Ryan Reynolds. Everything Ryan Reynolds touches turns to gold. Everything Sinbad touches turns to crap, which is why you don't hear about Sinbad anymore. But
I
was
think my
gonna
first
say,
experience with Sinbad was like
you know-
A Different World, which was the Cosby spinoff, and that was good.
No idea.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's like way before. I don't know. You're just talking like old man stuff to me now.
You know what? Oh,
Stuff
well,
when I was a kid, bro.
You know,
I don't think you're my age, Turd. I don't know how old you are, but we noticed that Nick at Night for me was an entirely different network than it was for them.
Nick at Night was black and white for me.
Nick at Night had
It was not black and white for me. And
We're
the
like
same
close
age.
the same age.
Because I watched The Golden Girls, and that was not black and white.
I watched the Golden Girls like with my grandma when it aired in syndication or before syndication.
It wasn't black and white.
I get it.
It
but
was on Nick at Night.
Hold on.
Maybe later on.
You know what the best Nick at Night show was? It was the Brady Bunch because Marsha made my pee-pee hard.
Okay. No, I watched like
wasn't on
Green
mine.
Acres
Mhm.
and Dobie Gillett. Those are all black and white.
Green
The
Acres
Patty
was
Duke
black
Show.
and white? I don't think so.
Patty Duke Show, the Donna Reed Show.
Bewitched was black and white.
Yeah.
I wish I watched Bewitched. That sounds more interesting.
Torrent it. It's still available.
Yeah, I should. Something like that. I
Binge it.
find it. See if it's on Hulu. I actually have Hulu now, but I got it just to watch one thing. But
Oh, I got it too because it was like $2.99 for the rest of the year.
oh, then you
Or
definitely
for a whole year.
You guys got roped in.
You definitely need to watch The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I'm going to now.
So
yeah.
we can talk about
I just
it.
watched Catherine Called Birdie, which was great.
Just pirate it.
I
actually, that
haven't
was
used it.
Prime. Sorry.
I haven't used it for anything else.
Just pirate
good.
it because IP is BS.
Well, I'm scared of pirating right now.
Why?
I can't talk about
It's
it.
just more work for me than I want to do. I just want to
Yeah.
be able to like push a button and then talk to my TV and tell it what I want to watch, and then it just
Okay.
plays it for me.
I'll just
All
say
right.
I didn't know that when a KTorrent is running that you're connected to the internet.
Oh, yeah. How do you... Okay.
I didn't know. I didn't understand it at all.
That's a level of ignorance that I have I'm struggling to comprehend.
Because it doesn't look like it on Linux. It looks like it's just an app on your phone. I mean, sorry, it looks like it's just an app on your computer that's not always connected to the internet as long as it's on.
Okay.
And even if your browser's not up,
Yeah,
the
if you,
KTorrent is on the internet.
Okay.
And I didn't know that.
All right.
So that's all I'll say. I am scared now.
You got a
If you
takedown
have
notice from your...
If you have a VPN, if you have a VPN, you can pirate anonymously.
Yes, and if my
And then
VPN was
you won't
running
get
at
caught.
all times, and if I had my VPN on a thing that it popped up every time the internet was on, that would be fine. Anyways,
I have a VPN permanently running on my main PC, and that's where I do my pirating.
Well, I was going to say, Avid, aka DigiDesign, aka the crappiest pro audio company of all time, can suck my pee-pee because I actually downloaded a few weeks ago Pro Tools 10 HD from the Pirate Bay, which I'm sure makes Avid really mad that they're not going to make money off their 15-year-old software now.
How hypocritical
So
of
I'm
you,
sure
though.
they're really upset about that.
To be such a proponent
Why
of
is it
intellectual
hypocritical?
property
Rules
and then to pirate software.
Rules for thee,
Yeah.
but not for turd.
Yes.
oh, it's only for
first of
pop
all-
music. Apparently,
Do you want me to explain? Do you want me to explain why I don't mind necessarily people pirating? Because I like the incentive that the law creates and the fact that it gives companies something to fall back on, so other companies can't steal their intellectual property and sell it themselves. I have much less of a problem of individuals going onto the Pirate Bay and downloading an Ava Max song.
but it's the same
However you want to
principle.
justify it.
It's the
Banging
same
body, by the way.
principle is the problem.
Like Lori said, rules for thee, but not for thee. If you can make a buck off it, off the government protection, then of course you'll want it. And that's why we have government protection and lobbyists for almost all the industries.
Because there's somebody that wants that law for themselves, no matter what
Yeah,
the law is.
exactly.
It's just a different one for everyone.
It's a series of
you're
buts.
morally righteous. Congratulations. Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations. Hey, is there a way that you guys, the next time that Jerome calls, can you buzz me in at the same time and get me on the line with him so I can
Yes.
ask him some questions? Because
Yeah. If you,
Yeah, that'd
so
be
now that
so
you've let me
awesome,
know, just call in whenever I'm talking to him, sure.
If his audio is creamy enough to keep
that'd
him
be
on
so
long
awesome.
enough.
Yeah, today his audio was bad, and I was afraid it was our stuff, but you sound fine, so it's not.
Jerome's audio is always terrible. I've never
actually true.
heard Jerome's audio be good.
It was like extra bad today, but
And-
it's
Yeah.
actually
and I
true.
gotta
It's always
say-
like kind of bad.
There's a tolerance
Yeah, it's
level, and
always
today it
bad, and
exceeded
that's
it.
because I think Jerome needs psychological help, and let me just say this also, because Jerome is also because he's got the MSNBC brain. I never say anything about Jerome's skin color, but I was going to say because Jerome has the MSNBC brainworms, he actually does believe that everything is racist. So I'd like to ask him about the innocent little baby angel that was accidentally killed on the New York train by Daniel Penny, who was actually trying to stop him from hurting other people.
Baby
So
angel.
he put him in the chokehold.
I
I'm
was,
sad.
I was like waiting to hear the.
I'm sad
oh.
that the
Did they issue a verdict? I didn't read anything about the final verdict.
They did. Oh, I thought they're still deliberating.
and there's a little baby.
What was the conclusion then? Like fill us in and fill anyone else in.
Death trial. Yeah, well, I hope that they let him off completely because
okay. So you don't know the verdict.
That would put up an incentive. That would incentivize other people to not go on trains while they're all high on cocaine and start threatening people. Now, wouldn't it? That's called incentives. That's called economic incentives. Something that I know Richie Rich hates.
I can't. Sorry, understand.
No,
if
I
this
mean
is actually-
that's fine. The incentive for being high on a train and attacking people is the person whom you're trying to attack should be armed and ready to defend themselves, right? And if somebody else has to intervene,
So you do like economic incentives.
I don't know what would make you suggest that
So
I
you
don't.
do like incentives. That's good.
conversation
I'm
about
glad. I'm
marijuana.
glad we're now on
No,
the
it's
same
the
page as
IP.
far as
Oh, it's the
intellectual
IP.
property.
Oh, so this is very
I
confusing.
like natural economic incentives then.
Does a jury deadlock mean that now they're done deliberating and it's
No, it means they haven't come to a conclusion.
then it's still in a deadlock, but during the deadlock the judge dismissed the manslaughter charge.
This is actually a really
This is days.
Yeah, this is actually this is a really specific. Yeah, this is a very unique scenario because the way that it's set up, this particular case, is they had to deliberate on the manslaughter charge first, and it's only if they decide that he's not guilty, specifically not guilty on the manslaughter charge, that they can actually start deliberating on the lesser charge to still try to find Daniel Penny guilty of killing the innocent little baby angel who accidentally got killed when he was threatening a bunch of other people like a maniac.
So they dismissed the manslaughter charge so that they could deliberate on the lesser charge.
It sounds like that from what Turd is saying and from what I'm seeing, that might be the
what
case.
happened
I'm
first.
just trying to clear it up in my head. Go ahead, Turd.
What happened originally? Yeah, well, they deadlocked on it, but then after they deadlocked, in order to avoid getting a mistrial, see, this is all so screwed up. This is like one of the few times in history that this has happened. The prosecution in the middle of the case actually motioned to drop the manslaughter charge so they wouldn't have to bring in a new jury, try to retry Daniel Penny again, and so at least that they'll be able to find him guilty on the secondary charge, which
And
is
do you know
really
what the secondary
screwed
one
up.
is? Oh, the
And
secondary is criminally negligent homicide. That
It's
sounds
like
worse than manslaughter, but I guess
Yeah.
not. It's not
Right.
worse than manslaughter? Or is it?
Yeah, it's not. It's
like,
it's
whoops,
not
I
as
killed
bad
you.
as- It's like a it's
I thought that's what manslaughter was.
yeah, it's a negligence charge basically.
So that's what they're.
Well,
that
I
is
only meant to
crazy.
choke him unconscious. I didn't mean to choke him died.
Manslaughter's like the same thing, but less like jovial about it. Like,
Okay.
whoops, I killed you.
Whoa.
Instead of whoops, I killed you.
It's slightly one.
Oh.
Yeah, but I don't know. I really don't care. I mean, I'm sad that he died, but for people
Why?
to go out and
Why waste
say
time
that,
being
that
sad?
this guy was just an innocent little baby angel. Well, I'm sad because I don't like hearing people die. And it sounds like he was a Michael Jackson impersonator. I like Michael Jackson's music. I thought it was pretty good.
I like hearing that bad people
But
died.
to
It's
just
kind of
say-
funny,
I'm
but to just say
ambivalent
this
about
guy-
it.
I forgot about. All right. I mean, I didn't think of it at the time, but I want to know. Stu said no pop music has ever made his life better. And today I thought, what about Michael Jackson?
I don't think Stu likes Michael Jackson.
Oh, dang. That's crazy.
Prince?
No.
Prince?
He listens to like
Michael
punk
Jackson's
music and
music was
reggae
awesome.
Oh, okay.
exclusively, pretty much.
Well, I'm not sad that this guy died, really. I mean, I just don't care. Like,
Yeah, that's me. I don't care.
you would have to care
You did
to
a
be
stupid
sad.
thing and then you died.
And I'm also just not
On principle,
sad.
though, you should care.
Yeah, he's
I don't
just
think
a,
you have to be sad because a bad person
He's
died.
just an innocent little baby angel.
Okay, it's less funny the fourth time
Just an innocent little baby angel.
or the fifth time.
One more
So,
Just an innocent little baby angel that accidentally got killed on the train.
so it
Yeah.
sounds like
no,
they
more
are
people on trains who are acting out and attacking people should be dying.
Mhm.
Like that's the motivation to not do stupid stuff like
And he was
that.
on drugs. He's schizophrenic. Not that should be a
Well-
death sentence, either one of those things. But he was somebody that needed to be stopped. And well, you live in a city where people aren't allowed to defend themselves with most weapons, and that's a horrible thing. It's almost like, well, don't live there. For
You can
one
also
thing.
be schizophrenic and on drugs and not attack people.
Yeah.
And that's fine with me too.
My sister does it every day. So one thing I have to say about
She
this
just
is,
calls the cops to get them to attack people.
yeah, how the heck? And she also has attacked me, but she didn't kill anyone. How the heck is this guy 24? He looks 45.
Who is it?
Daniel Penny, the guy who strangled the other guy, looks. He could be
I'm gonna look.
50.
Life of hard living.
This is him. Oh man, it turned the screen dark when I paused it.
Is it a bad mugshot of him?
It's even in video I've seen. I'm shocked that this guy is 24 years old. Even if it's like, well, he was 24 at the time, and now he is 25.
Maybe he's a vampire.
He looks so much older than he should at 24. It's absolutely shocking. And
He's a vampire with a fake ID.
It's just a combination of unfortunate attributes.
I don't think he's ugly. I think he looks like totally fine. It's just like in fact, I'm going to go on the record and say I don't believe he's 24. This is some kind of government thing where they want to make some weird statement, and there are
He
people
should cut his hair into bangs, and that'll make him look younger too.
That it does make people look younger.
He
I
looks
think.
like Matt Stone.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Thank you, Turd Ferguson, for the call, and more calls to be taken coming up. Free Talk Live. Don't go anywhere.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Trent Murray reports on the rebels' rapid takeover from Tel Aviv.
A real historical moment here in the Middle East after more than 50 years of the Assad family ruling Syria with an iron fist. Their rule and regime all came crashing down overnight as those rebels who had been making a lightning offensive from the north to the south of the country officially took Damascus, the capital. The real first realisation of that came when they took over the state television and radio headquarters, where an anchor announced to the nation that Bashar al-Assad had fallen and that those rebels were now in charge. What we've seen is a flurry of activity in this really fast-moving story, extraordinary pictures coming out of Syria showing millions of people on the streets celebrating the fall of Bashar al-Assad, but also breaking into the presidential complex, into the residential wing where Bashar al-Assad and his family left, looters taking furniture and fine china and cutlery and even clothing.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's now deposed leader, is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
We have seen several Russian news outlets quoting the source in the Kremlin saying that Bashar al-Assad as well as the family of the ousted Syrian president are in Moscow, where they have sought the asylum which has been granted to them based on humanitarian grounds. We also have heard this same Kremlin source suggesting that Russian authorities remain in contact with the military opposition in Syria. We also have heard the same source suggesting that there have been security guarantees issued by those military opposition in Syria to the Russian diplomatic mission as well as to the Russian military bases.
Here in Washington, President Joe Biden is praising the regime change in Syria. Lisa Carton reports.
Speaking from the White House Sunday, Biden called the collapse of Assad's government a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice.
Biden also warned there's a moment of risk and uncertainty over what comes next. The president outlined continued U.S. involvement in Syria to help establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward an independent nation that serves all Syrians. Biden's remarks came after a coalition of rebels captured the Syrian capital of Damascus.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 to get in on the conversation with us, bring up whatever's on your mind. We're going to be going to the phones in just a bit, but I'd like to thank Alex for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Alex went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks to Alex and everyone who supports us. And again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Lori,
and Richie Rich.
And I'm going to go straight to the phones. We have an unscreened caller on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
That was the most smooth brain string of calls I've heard to open a show.
So you're going to continue them in the same fashion?
He needs to win the smooth brain.
Did you get your soundboard set up?
No, I didn't. No.
First, Tard Bergerson. What is that guy's obsession with IP? I mean, learn real economics, man.
His obsession is that he benefits from it. That's it.
I know. His biased point of view.
Yes.
You can listen, Tard. You can over-incentivize and have too much of a particular good, including innovation. And IP only increases innovation in the short term when you first implement it at the expense of productivity, but decreases innovation and productivity in the long run.
What's this guy's obsession with productivity?
It's evolutionary.
Think about it. Think about it, Lori. Why is aggression bad? Can you give me a rational reason why aggression is bad? It's because we think it lowers productivity when someone kills someone productive, right?
No.
But think about this.
So kill homeless people only.
Yeah, exactly.
And welfare recipients.
What if you
I
kill
think that
homeless
you can logically come to the conclusion that aggression is bad because it infringes on the freedom of a person, and that you don't have to make it any deeper than that.
It's bad because it creates harm. It's simple as that.
And the harm reduces productivity.
Harm is
Yeah,
harm is anytime
that's it.
somebody's freedom is taken away.
It
That's
doesn't-
how we're defining.
Does
I'm
it? Because, I mean, you could get slaves and whip them, and then it increases productivity, right?
It's actually was
No.
about to be the
Oh.
case that they
Sort
were going
of.
to get rid of slavery anyway with the progress of, this is what a lot of people say, so I guess somebody could tell me I'm wrong, but the
You're
progress
wrong.
of the what do you call it, they were having factories and stuff, the change of the way that labor was going to be was actually making it to where slavery was, well, now I have these people instead
Yes.
of machines that I have to feed.
The
and it was-
innovation of the cotton gin.
yeah, the innovation was actually going to make it to where slavery was going to end up obsolete anyway, very quickly.
Well, now we're going to have robots, so we can have new level of slavery.
Chattel slavery was obsolete because they
but
still take
slavery
productivity
actually
from my
increased the-
paycheck.
Yep.
But slavery actually increased the production of the United States, didn't it?
I just explained why that's not necessarily true, and you just ignored it and asked the same
No,
question
no.
Lori asked.
But you didn't ask me why. It allowed African immigration, right? Otherwise, they would
It was allowed. That was always allowed.
All the African Americans, most of the African Americans currently in the U.S. would have never came here. They would
I'm
have
sure
been
all
stuck
those
in
slaves
a
were real
third world
happy they were
country.
allowed to be taken on ships and become slaves.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
I don't understand why
The question that never gets asked is who owned them and sold them to the Americans.
I mean, but to say that they were allowed to have immigration, that's a real
Yeah,
weird
that's-
way to put that.
Yeah, that's so true. I'm sure it was
wouldn't.
possible
How
otherwise.
many
Actually, it definitely
African-Americans
was,
would
because
be
the
here
ones
if
that are
there
in
wasn't
like
slavery?
Dominican Republic, they actually weren't all slaves. Some of them actually voluntarily went to like the Caribbean specifically.
What percentage of African Americans are Dominican Republic? What
I'm
percentage
not talking
of
about
African
Americans. I'm talking
here
about the ones in the
came
Dominican
through
Republic.
the immigration.
Okay. I think it's
channel.
like getting really close to being pointless to talk to you, so I'm about to hang up on you. Like when you talk over people right after asking
Sorry,
them a
Bonnie.
question, and when you're
Sorry,
just like
Bonnie.
not making any points, like you actually literally just asked the same question Lori asked, and I
Sorry.
said something about it, and then you just say the
Sorry,
same thing.
So I don't have the actual statistics for you to answer your question, Skeeter. However,
look it up. Just like Hilbert's infinite paradox.
But let me suggest this: you would still have African immigrants, just like the United States had immigrants from all over the world, right? For who migrated here from France and Spain and England.
And what percentage, though?
It doesn't make any sense that you're
the vast
making this-
majority of African American
You're
citizens came
making-
from the slavery channel.
And you're making some
not
kind of
from the
weird assumption that
naturalization.
African Americans are better or more there's a reason why we would want them here over a different person, and there's no logical reason for that. Oh, without it,
but a
they
certain
wouldn't be here.
percentage would have been here anyway. Maybe not in the number, maybe not in the greatest number that you're suggesting.
And why are
but they would have
African
come.
Americans here better, or somehow, evolution wants that to happen versus immigrants from China? There is no good reason. Not saying I'm not claiming, it'd be better if it was someone else. I'm just saying your weird little quality that you're claiming is a good thing, you have no reason to call it a good or a bad thing, as if like evolution would just decide we need Africans to move from Africa to the North America, and I'm going to make a way for that to happen, even if it's slavery.
And much like a lot of things where the government gets in the way, there's no way to know what the opportunity cost of having slaves is, right? Like if they weren't allowed to have slaves, how much more productive could they have been doing something else?
Oh my God, the Gonzaga education is actually worth something. But this is not really what I want to talk about.
Of course not.
Never.
I wanted to bring up my new perfect analogy since Riley got tripped up just on the Jones Plantation analogy. But first, before we move on to my perfect analogy, can someone survive the Jones Plantation and explain? So maybe someone wants to explain it for me.
The Jones Plantation?
Yeah. Don't straw man.
The Jones Plantation is a film from Larkin Rose, who it's an allegory for the current system of what we'll call non-chattel slavery on the American plantation, which is there's a false setting of the slaves free, and then under the pretense that they are free and are being represented in the government of the plantation.
What was false about it?
They weren't actually set free.
They were given the option to leave, right?
They were given the option to leave, and if you recall later in the movie, the one that exercised that option was kidnapped, beaten, and returned.
No.
Yes.
No, that slave earned income using the plantation's resources, and he didn't pay the fees due.
No, he did.
That's why he was punished.
No,
he didn't.
He left.
He didn't.
They gave him his papers to leave. He said, "I'm exercising my right to leave," and he went on to the next plantation. Was captured.
Yes, he saw the future of Roger Ver when he made that.
You talked to Larkin Rose, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah,
but he got his papers to leave the plantation. He was subsequently captured, beaten, and returned to the plantation. And then beaten to death by the other plantation slaves.
No. I didn't watch the movie. I watched the original YouTube analogy, right?
Okay, we'll watch the movie.
The slave didn't pay the taxes due, and he's whipped by everybody's decision, right? So in that one, and that's not what the United States does.
Yes, it is.
Roger Ver is not a good example.
Erwin Schiff,
whatever you're talking about.
Erwin Schiff and Larkin Rose are good examples. Anybody that has gone to federal...
Erwin Schiff is a tax evader.
Yes, and he was sentenced by a jury of taxpayers who tried to get away because he tried to get away with not paying his taxes. Same with Larkin Rose.
All you have to
willful failure to file.
This violates your example. You're earning income using the resources of the common good.
It doesn't violate my example.
The collective good.
They failed to pay their taxes. The tax slaves could have found him not guilty and set a precedent that nobody has to pay taxes because nobody will find them guilty, right? If you're on the jury and you don't want to pay your taxes because everyone says I don't want to pay my taxes, like it's just a price you pay for civilized society. You could find him not guilty, set a precedent. What?
The option to leave the plantation refers to you leaving before you use any of the resources of the plantation.
That's not maybe in the video that you're referring to, but not in the movie.
Even the slave in the analogy used the resources of the collective plantation,
but still was allowed to leave.
Tried to leave,
and in the movie, but he was allowed to leave. It's not like he used the resources and then was prevented from leaving. They went, here are your papers. You are now a free man. And then they paid the plantation owner of the next plantation to capture him, beat him, and return him so that he would not be compelled to try to exercise that right again.
I didn't watch that stupid movie, but I'm talking about
watch the movie.
Talking about the YouTube video. I'm talking about the YouTube video. I'm talking about the YouTube video.
I didn't watch the YouTube video, so now we're just talking past each other.
You asked somebody to explain the Jones plantation before you make your stupid analogy, and then you're just saying that he's not explaining it well enough, and I've never watched either one.
You should watch the movie.
I can play it for you while we're on here.
No,
How about
thanks.
that?
Definitely don't want to do that.
Okay.
Spend a
then
whole...
accept my...
Post it on your YouTube channel. Bonnie will take a look at it.
What you're going to say, if you say that, oh, well, we're going to make a hypothetical where the guy used plantation resources to make money, then left without paying taxes, you're going to make a situation different than the hypothetical you're going to try to make it about the United States. So what's the point?
Then let me take you on Skeeter's plantation. Okay, now I let you leave. Okay, you weren't slaves to begin with, right? You were born on my plantation. I have the right to evict you. Now I say to you, hey, leave. You have the choice to leave. If you stay, use my resources, I'm charging you a fee because I'm entitled to some of that income you generate from using my resources. You refuse to leave. You stay. Are you obligated to pay my fees?
You are a human being with property rights, so yeah. The United States is not a human being with property rights.
Plantation? Do you have rights to my plantation, Bonnie?
I just told you that I just answered your freaking question. I said, yeah, because you're a human being with property rights, but the United States is not a human being with property rights.
I asked you a specific question of property rights. I
just answered it. You just don't listen.
Does he have property rights to the resources on my plantation? Rich?
No.
I just said no. I already answered him, and he's just screaming without replying to my answer. And I'm explaining how it's also not a direct hypothetical. I mean,
it's a bad analogy
to the United States that he's trying to make.
Skeeter made a bad analogy.
It's a perfect analogy
because one is individual private property rights in the case of Skeeter's plantation, and you're trying to correlate that with 300 million collective owners of the United States property.
It matters a lot.
It's completely different. And the United States system was supposed to be one that protects private property, and that's what differentiated it from all the other plantations in the world.
Let's see if it changes the analysis.
It will not.
Now instead of Skeeter,
you already know it will not.
Now it's just a group of Skeeters. Right? They own the plantation. Now they say to the person being born on the land, hey,
are they alive?
We're gonna give you partial ownership. We're gonna give you an equal vote on how we run this plantation.
Is this a contract?
Vote till you're 18.
2 questions already.
Right?
Skeeter, whose name is on the deed to the United States?
Hold on. You're interrupting me. Let me set up the damn analogy.
And soon Donald Trump.
How can I accept your analogy when I have questions you won't answer?
No, just let me set it up. Then you can ask the questions because you steer me off course by asking me questions in the middle of the setup, right? So you have a group of Skeeters, and let me ask you right now a quick question. Does it matter how many people are in that group, the joint ownership of that plantation?
Are they alive? And did they make a direct agreement with the person that lives there? That the person was able to decide what they want to do and then
did they steal that plantation from the Native Americans?
Let's say they acquired the plantation through evolution of a government.
Then it's illegitimate.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say, okay, then that's totally fine.
It's illegitimate? So revolution is illegitimate? So why is secession legitimate?
Because it's not revolution.
That's not creating a government.
Rich just made a Gonzaga statement. He said secession
you're using
is not
two different things.
A case of revolution.
It's not.
Does everyone agree with that?
I don't know that I agree off the top of my head that secession is not revolution, but it's also not a creation of a government.
It may be a revolutionary act, but you don't need, a revolution to secede. It was supposed to be part of the original agreement.
The reason that your analogies never work, Skeeter, is because the government is working. It's not. It's because the government is not people who own this land.
Yes, it is.
It is an institution.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. The situation we have now in the U.S. is just a complex version of joint ownership.
No.
It's just a very complex version where the
and we reject
distribution
that
of
premise
ownership is
from
very,
which you build all of your other arguments on top of.
Let me
Right, so
explain
therefore
you.
all of your arguments are
Instead of getting interrupted, let me
Reject it.
finish my explanation, right? So this joint ownership
You don't need to,
operates in-
because we've
it's
already
just-
rejected your premise.
Yeah, we already rejected that it's a joint ownership, so you don't need to go any further.
There is
If you said, I'm going to make you a sandwich, and I said, no, thank you, I'm not hungry, and you said, but the sandwich.
But the sandwich is so
It's got
good.
ham in it, and you really like ham, and I'm like, no, I just really don't want a sandwich. And you're like, but you let me finish making the sandwich and bring it to you, and then you can tell me if you want it.
And I'll throw it in the garbage just to spite you.
Yeah.
Silly.
It's just it's not fun to have a conversation with someone who they want you to accept that the premise of what their analogy is one-to-one with the thing that they're trying to make a point about. You don't accept it, and then he just starts yelling over you, and it's boring, it's dumb, and he just needs to realize that a group of people who are dead, who never contracted with people living 200 years later, owning, quote-unquote, and they never even claimed that. The group of people who created the United States didn't claim they owned it. That's not the same thing as somebody owning a farm. So that's so obvious. I can't even have this conversation with him since he doesn't understand that. We have another caller on the line. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to say, though?
No, that's good.
So, Jet, in somewhere in the West. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Western Plantation.
Yeah, well, I wanted to clarify something about that, the subway killer guy, and then I wanted to talk about
Daniel
system in general.
Dang it, I forgot. Daniel Penny. There we go.
Yeah, well, I've been in two branches of the military, and I've been involved in martial arts most of my life. And anyone who employs the rear naked choke knows that it can kill in less than a minute. Now, supposedly, he'd been in the military and been instructed. He obviously knew how to use it.
I don't know if those things follow. He's been in the military, so he was well trained. I don't know if those two
No,
things
they
follow.
get hand-to-hand combat training.
I know, but
Okay,
they're bad gun shooters a lot of time, I've heard.
that's true.
And they
Cops are a
get-
terrible shot generally.
And they get trained. So I just don't know
I was
that
an
follows.
expert.
Okay.
I got expert marksman on my first time out. Anyway, so the idea that somehow, I mean, he knew that it was something you could kill with, and the guy went limp, and that's the major sign that you could let up immediately. Because as soon as you're limp, that means he's completely cut off the blood of the brain. Anyway, I just wanted to.
So
clarify that.
you're making the suggestion that he exceeded the necessary force to repel the threat.
Oh, absolutely. As far as I know, he hadn't hurt anybody so far in order to even get into that condition. Maybe taunted somebody or threatened somebody.
Oh, he hadn't hurt anyone?
Well, a threat is enough if it's a valid threat, a compelling threat.
Yes, to stop, but not to stop with,
But still, I don't mind.
Death.
I don't mind that he got him in some kind of a.
Like if I say, I'm going to shoot you, right? You're like, well, that's a valid threat.
It's
You
like even
perfectly well.
This is the
That's
problem
true.
I have with it's somebody saying, "Well, he should have known that would kill someone." Is that's a thought crime? How are we supposed to know that Daniel Penny knew that it was going to end in death? And how are we supposed to know that he didn't believe he would get harmed if he let the big guy go?
Also,
I will take
it's holding individuals to a higher standard than they hold the police, because the police are, if they're responding to a threat, they're told to.
I was in fear for my life.
Take the threat away.
I will take Jet's side on this one to answer your question real quick, Bonnie. It's not that it doesn't matter that he knows that it's going to end in death. It's that he should have known when to release the hold when the threat was no longer a threat.
But you, by taking that side, are saying that you knew that he knew he wouldn't be in danger if he let go. And I don't know if that's true.
Well,
He didn't
because
have to,
well,
he didn't have to let
talking.
go. He could have employed. He could have employed.
I'd say go get choked out or go choke someone out, right? And it'll be pretty clear when they're out.
But that's the thing. He was talking. That's the thing. He kept saying like, "I can't breathe," and then it was only a little bit later.
Well, that's a conflict to what Jet is saying. Jet's saying he choked him, went limp, and then maintained the choke longer than after he went limp.
Okay. Well, I read about it like 3 days ago, so I I guess, be wrong.
Okay.
Either way,
Well,
it's like you're still
But
still
that's the
saying
difference.
that. You're still saying you know what's going on in someone's head, and I don't like that.
But his commanding officer did testify that he knew what he was doing. So anyway,
And again,
So
just-
his commanding officer knew what was in his brain at that
no,
moment.
what I'm saying by just go get like a little bit of training, choke someone out, have someone choke you out,
No.
and it'll be pretty evident like when the line is there.
Well, how do you know that he didn't
what
think that he should kill him? Because what if he just thought he should kill him? If somebody thinks somebody's a threat and they should be shot, I don't have a problem with that. So it's just different when it's a chokehold? Why? Honest question. Why?
The disparity of force, right? Like even in libertarian Rothbardian ethics, the force to repel the threat is equal to the threat itself.
Mhm.
And if you exceed that, then you are now in violation of aggression.
He didn't know that the guy didn't have a weapon on him.
He didn't, but if Jed is correct and he choked the guy out and the guy went limp, the guy's no longer a threat.
Oh, I see. So that's before he's dead.
And
that's before he's dead.
and
That's
there were
just
three
like
other
unconscious.
I just Google it. Said he had him in a chokehold for 6 minutes, which is a really long time.
Extraordinary.
And there were three
Like
other
I watch
people
UFC fights and
holding him
guys
down.
will be out in 10 seconds.
Mhm.
It doesn't take that long.
How long until he went out then?
I don't know. You got to ask Jed.
Oh.
What's that?
How
What
long
was the
did it
question?
take from the time he got him in a chokehold till the time that this guy went out,
Went limp.
passed out?
I'm not sure, but he did have three other guys help holding him down. What I'm getting at is anyone who knows the least bit about the rear naked choke knows how deadly it can be, so he needs to be held to a certain level of responsibility, because I know that he knew, not only from his military training, but obviously he quickly wrapped him up like a backpack, and that's exactly how it goes. So he had
I mean, you
done
don't
it
know that he
before.
knew just from that, but you can also
You can
say-
infer from his training that he had the
that's
skill
different.
necessary.
That's different than saying I know that
Okay.
he knew. I don't like all this.
Yeah.
All this.
I think you're getting caught up into semantics.
I think that we shouldn't be saying that we know what's going on in people's heads, especially when it's like having to do with law.
But if the evidence is that the guy went limp and he held the choke on 5 minutes longer, he exceeded the force necessary to repel the threat.
Will if somebody gets
Yes.
knocked out, are you positive they will stay asleep or whatever when you get off of them? Is there
No,
any
it's-
chance?
It won't be that long before they recover, maybe within a minute or two. But like I said, he had other people holding him down. He did not have to maintain that choke. In other words, there's no excuse. There is zero excuse for what he did.
And he could have maintained the position and just like lightened up the choke a little bit.
This is so like, why would he do it then? It makes me think, like just on a totally different subject, this is some kind of strange government setup to make a point. Like now they want even more restrictions on people defending themselves in New York, and this is going to be what they use
They don't
to
want
do that
other
because-
people coming to the defense of innocent people.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the government's job.
That's been obvious for a while, and it's like if this guy, what you guys are saying is all true, and this guy knew he could have let go, seems like why didn't he? You're just getting yourself set up for getting in trouble. So that's when I start to think psyop going on. 603-283-6160. We've been talking about Daniel Penny and more. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
If you're the parent of a man-child, you know how frustrating it can sometimes be. The piercing sound of his video games waking you up at 2 in the morning. His insatiable hunger and inability to cook anything for himself. The messes he makes. The stress can be overwhelming.
Something will set them off, such as their man-child will tell them that they don't know how to tie a tie even though they're almost 30. They'll start shaking them and yelling and saying, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why don't you get a real job instead of working part-time at a board game store?"
The results of shaken man-child syndrome are devastating. Trauma caused by the brain colliding with the inside of the man-child's skull can lead to cognitive disabilities, making it even more unlikely he'll finally marry the girl he's been having a long-distance online relationship with for 6 years. Or it can even lead to death.
He's not spilling cereal all over the couch or leaving his beard clippings in the bathroom sink intentionally. He truly does not know what he's doing.
For the Lab Report, I'm Stuart Adams.
This is the Onion News Network.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Trent Murray reports on the rebels' rapid takeover from Tel Aviv.
A real historical moment here in the Middle East after more than 50 years of the Assad family ruling Syria with an iron fist. Their rule and regime all came crashing down overnight as those rebels who had been making a lightning offensive from the north to the south of the country officially took Damascus, the capital. The real first realisation of that came when they took over the state television and radio headquarters, where an anchor announced to the nation that Bashar al-Assad had fallen and that those rebels were now in charge. What we've seen is a flurry of activity in this really fast-moving story, extraordinary pictures coming out of Syria showing millions of people on the street celebrating the fall of Bashar al-Assad, but also breaking into the presidential complex, into the residential wing where Bashar al-Assad and his family left, looters taking furniture and fine china and cutlery and even clothing.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's now deposed leader, is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
We have seen several Russian news outlets quoting the source in the Kremlin saying that Bashar al-Assad as well as the family of the ousted Syrian president are in Moscow, where they have sought the asylum which has been granted to them based on humanitarian grounds. We also have heard this same Kremlin source suggesting that Russian authorities remain in contact with the military opposition in Syria. We also have heard the same source suggesting that there have been security guarantees issued by those military opposition in Syria to the Russian diplomatic mission as well as to the Russian military bases.
Here in Washington, President Joe Biden is praising the regime change in Syria. Lisa Carton reports.
Speaking from the White House Sunday, Biden called the collapse of Assad's government a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice.
Biden also warned there's a moment of risk and uncertainty over what comes next. The president outlined continued U.S. involvement in Syria to help establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward an independent nation that serves all Syrians. Biden's remarks came after a coalition of rebels captured the Syrian capital of Damascus, prompting Assad to resign. I'm Lisa Carton.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more on the weekend's extraordinary events in Syria and the sweeping from power of dictator Bashar al-Assad. US President-elect Donald Trump said over the weekend that he does not believe the United States should be playing any role, arguing on social media that this is not our fight. But in fact, the US is already deeply engaged in Syrian affairs. There are 900 troops in the northeast of the country supporting Kurdish fighters there, and American sanctions on Syria's oil and gas sectors are so comprehensive that to all intents and purposes it has a stranglehold over the country's economy. Joshua Landis heads the Center for Middle East Studies at the University of Oklahoma.
There are heavy American sanctions on this. America owns all the oil and gas, so that's not coming to the Syrian government. And so Assad has not been able to rebuild. We'll have to see what the new one brings and whether America will lift those sanctions, return oil and gas to the Damascus, or keep it for the Kurds. These are going to be big questions. They're going to look to the international community to lift those sanctions.
He spoke to Canada's CBC. Many observers believe that after Bashar al-Assad and members of his minority Alawite sect in Syria, the Kurds may be the biggest losers from this weekend's events, with Turkey watching closely and hoping to neutralise Kurdish hopes for autonomy. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main headlines again. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Bashar al-Assad is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. And in Washington, US President Joe Biden is praising regime change in Syria.
A cool guy from middle school is still sporting his fat pair of Jinkos. A stunned St. Peter's Square crowd hears the Pope getting bitched out by God, and an 8th grader caked in makeup is probably really confident. This is The Onion Week in Review. This week, a Pew Research Center poll found that the vast majority of Americans would watch a television show called Love Trap, with most saying that regardless of the show's genre or quality, they would tune in weekly to see its stars stumble into romantic triangles, double-cross one another, and contend with whatever the titular love trap refers to. The survey confirmed that 62% of Americans would likely watch Love Trap to see a shrewd but cold-hearted Southern belle named Tammy. 23% of the nation hoped the show would be referred to as The Trap by its most loyal fans, and 15% of respondents said they simply needed something to watch. And in this week's Science News, a biologist completes a 5-minute study of the pathetic organism in his mirror. In other news, a man confidently hits send on the worst job application a company has ever seen.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And we've been podcasting since podcasts began, literally, but we're launching a new podcast anyway. Our new podcast is a 30 to 45-minute show releasing once a week, and you can find it at freetalkcast.com. It's brought to you by the same people who bring you Free Talk Live, and we'd love for you to check it out. The existing radio archive isn't going anywhere, though, so this is just a new show designed from the start to be a podcast, so check it out at freetalkcast.com. And with you on Free Talk Live tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Lori,
and Richie Rich.
And we have some callers already on the line, so I'm just going to go to the phones.
And the fun.
And the fun. It's, you know what's the hardest decision in the phones ever?
Which button to push?
Sarah or David from New Mexico?
Oh, man. I think the phone lines just broke.
I think we should, the problem is, now I'll feel bad whoever I answer. Oh, David just hung up because of being compared to Sarah. Okay, let's
He's letting ladies go first.
Thank you, David.
Gentlemen.
For letting ladies go first, David.
That used to be a rule.
Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live, Sarah, in New Mexico. What's on your mind?
Well, thank you for taking my call because I think I have more interesting things to talk about that pertain to life.
Most callers do.
I was going to say, every caller probably thinks their calls are the best,
Just wait until you get on Turd Ferguson's bad side.
Yeah, but the like David, he gets carried away with New Mexico history and all this, or just on and on for 40 minutes, you know?
40?
Not like traffic or buses or anything.
40 minutes is unrealistic. He hasn't done that. There are times where I'm telling people in real life about something David has said, but not red light cameras.
Well, I just want to talk about today the Ozempic. My friend is a pre-diabetic, and she was like overweight, 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, they wanted her to, she was taking Ozempic and she was vomiting. So we're going to have to get that lawsuit number so she could get some money. Okay, but they wanted her to take Zepbound. And then
is that a similar thing to Ozempic, or what is Zepbound? Okay, it's just another brand.
She's gonna sue because she took a drug and had a side effect?
You don't say.
Well,
I think she'll lose, right?
No, but the television.
Try with the
but
vaccines.
they have a lawsuit going on right now. We still see advertisement.
I don't think it's because, like, oh, you had a side effect and threw up. It's like, oh, it destroyed your kidneys or something. I don't think you get money because you threw up.
And is throwing up or, nausea a side effect that's already listed? Because maybe if they didn't list it, maybe you'll have a claim. But if they've listed it and you just decided, yeah, I'll go ahead and take that anyway, sounds like it's on you.
Also, if it's not listed, they'll have trouble like making the correlation as a causation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
Is she on any other drugs?
Well,
right.
The thing is that she doesn't even know
poisoning.
that there's the lawsuit right now. So the thing is, if she could get some money somehow.
There are these things, they're called jobs. And then you get money somehow.
Yeah, she could get some money somehow.
You mean if you work, you get paid?
This doesn't have to do with my money. It's that, the Zepbound. Guess how much was, she has to pay $1,000 to take one shot of Zepbound medication injection.
It is cheaper than $1,000 to lose weight, though. You don't need to buy a $1,000 injection to lose weight.
Yeah, I feel like it's not a life-saving thing that you need. And
well, how about this? And then
you can always take Lizzo.
And then I found that was just a copay. That's her part of the bill. Like she has to get thrown out on the street, forget the rent money. She's on disability.
No, she can stay
rent,
fat.
No food.
Oh,
or exercise.
I forgot. She did say it's not about obesity. It's about diabetes, right?
Okay, just don't eat well. Just eat well.
There's also other diabetes medications, obviously, because Ozempic came out 2 years ago, or 1 year ago.
Yeah, and then what happened is that she was on our network marketing vitamins, and then the doctors told her she lost 12 pounds and then 8 inches on her waist, and they said that vitamin B and D combined together, and her whatever med she's on, it's gonna melt her liver. That's yeah. The vitamins is going to destroy her liver in that combination. And I had emergency packet, it's a vitamin packet. It's got vitamin B and C, and everybody takes it. That has
you're misunderstanding something. Packet. I don't think that just taking vitamin D and taking vitamin C and nothing else, no other factors somehow destroys your liver.
She said with her medication.
Oh, if it's
it's probably the medication.
Yeah.
Probably just the medication.
Injection,
Right. Otherwise, people would just be having their livers melt constantly because there's the multivitamin industry is so prevalent.
It's a legitimate concern amongst bodybuilders.
To have your liver melt?
They take so much supplements that they also have to take a supplement to cleanse their liver.
I agree that is a possibility.
It can't catch it. It can't keep up.
You could just not
supplementing,
take all of that stuff.
Yeah, but then you never become Mr. Olympia.
I think supplementing is so much more dangerous than getting all of the things you need from food, because food has the right amounts of things in it.
Yes.
And a lot of times something natural that you eat, a whole food, will have something in it, say a heavy metal, but then it also has another thing in it that helps take the excess out, like in seafood.
For normal people, yes.
Yes. And also, as you digest the food, it comes out in the way that nature intended it to come out, in the amounts and in the process. Instead of taking 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C all in one go and overloading your body.
I only do that
just
when
eat
I'm sick.
An orange.
I have been squeezing oranges and being really consistent with that recently, but when I'm sick, I'll still take Emergency, and it's just like, bang, it's over. I've only done it
because it's concentrated
twice this year. Yeah. But like, if you just do that every day, that's silly. You can obviously harm yourself.
I take organ supplements because I don't want to eat organs.
Yeah, I was doing that. I took a long break, and now I'm going to start again.
And generally, if you overtake it, you pee it out, and it's not a big deal.
With some things.
Yeah, but I've been taking Airborne, the little tablet that fits. What's the difference between Airborne and Emergency?
I don't know.
Vitamin C drink?
Branding.
I was going to say, I think I'm just brand loyal, and it's like I used Emergency once when I was like 20, and now I just use Emergency.
Also, read the bottle.
Yeah.
What's an Airborne?
It's probably on the bottle.
Compare that to like the little thing of Emergency.
They probably have a little asterisk on the bottom that says proprietary blend.
Emergency has all of the other thing, or not all of. It has a bunch of other things too, but Emergency is like, vitamin C is the big one. I know there's like B vitamins in it too.
Okay.
I have no clue with Airborne, but there is Google. Anything else, Chris?
The Airborne was designed by a school teacher. She was constantly getting sick. What I like about Airborne is that it's in a plastic container. You could put it in your purse. You could carry it around. And it's a tablet. You don't need like to have a spoon to stir it or anything. It's the convenience. And I do taste a little bit of some kind of a medicine, like a cough syrup kind of thing that's in there.
Airborne?
Well, good thing as a consumer you have a choice.
I like Emergency because it tastes awesome.
It does
tastes like
awesome.
Fizzy, delicious,
I've never had
orangey candy. Well, anything else?
Like Tang?
Yeah, it kind of does, but fizzy. It's like
Fizzy Tang.
It'll be like fizzy orange juice, but it's more fake. So yeah, like Tang.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to talk about, Sarah?
Not bad.
Well, the thing is, they scared the living daylights out of her because she was doing so good with her supplements. And they do this because, she started finally. I kept pestering her. She finally started taking her shakes and vitamins, and she dropped like 12 pounds. I said, "Stay with it." So they were all up on her to scare her off of this. Like, she can't take any of our vitamins. You know what I mean? So
why, if your supplements were working, why did she even go to this other company to get their product?
Well, she was always on it. She's on psych meds, and she's on some other injection that I don't know what she's taking. It's some mental.
The dangers of like what Sarah's talking about is people believe, all supplements are fine as long as like the word natural is on the bottle. And so there's someone like Sarah who's never been close to a college or a job. And she is out there prescribing something to her friends because it's like, it's essential. It's a vitamin. It's fine. And the doctors are openly telling her, no, it's going to melt your liver. And Sarah's telling her, stick with it. You lost 10 pounds. I can't even believe my ears right now. Every time we talk to her, I can't believe my ears.
Who do you believe? Do you believe the supplements or do you believe the science?
I don't necessarily say, doctors are always right, but in the case of this scenario, somebody who has some kind of knowledge of like what's going on with it versus somebody who just is tricked that, this has the word organic on it.
Okay.
And the thing
the doctors also have the monetary incentive to get that prescription on her though.
But they're not telling her to take some new thing. They're telling her, with this thing you're already prescribed and taking these vitamins could be hurting you.
Yeah.
That's why does Sarah think she has any kind of right to tell somebody, stick with it? Anyways.
I don't know why anyone would think that vitamins are going to impact your weight like that anyway.
Well, but that's what the doctors are saying.
It couldn't be the Ozempic.
The doctors are saying take the pharmaceuticals from the pharmaceutical company and stop taking your vitamin supplements.
Just eat less.
I mean, that's fair.
And also,
then don't worry about Sarah's supplements that she wants you to take.
I really doubt that she's taking D and B, and it's somehow just making her lose weight, and it's not the Ozempic. I'm a bit confused on that, but I don't really want to talk about it with her anymore. It's just so mind-numbing. We have this interesting article I wanted to get into from MSN. Colleges are dismantling DEI.
Yay! A lot of places are getting rid of their DEI, and I am so pumped about it. Like, there's a whole list of companies that are getting rid of their DEI stuff, and I was like, Walmart was one of them, and I was like, I should probably shop at Walmart now, even though I think that they're kind of terrible and I hate going there.
The thing about them that scares me is like the surveillance.
I hate going to Walmart.
They're like
everywhere is surveillance.
They say that you're agreeing to like basically sell your biometrics to them when you walk in.
want to go in a Walmart, only because like I don't want to be around the people that are in there.
It feels so dirty every time, no matter where almost.
But I am happy for them that they're getting rid of their DEI.
So as soon as Trump
I'm
got
not
elected,
entirely against DEI.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Again, because number one, it's voluntary, right? Like companies can hire whom they want for whatever reason they want.
Yeah, but what about like colleges that take government money?
Stop taking the government money. You can do what you want.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah,
they
but
are
they do
taking
take the government money.
Yeah, I got you.
They
shouldn't.
I'm not saying anyone should be forced to not do DEI. I think it's a dumb idea. I think it's scary to think that the
but it's also
pilots
again.
Like when all the plane doors were like flying off and
understood.
stuff.
The problem with DEI as it is now is that again it's reactionary to previous policy and voluntary agreements with the companies. So like my normal job, they don't like to hire female sales representatives because they might get pregnant and then not be able to work, which is their prerogative.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine, but it also marginalizes it means they're also not necessarily taking the best individual for the job. Right. Because they could find a female sales rep that's far better than any of the men on the team. And they won't do it for sexist reasons that they've legitimized with their own rationale of getting pregnant.
But DEI is the same thing, but the other way. They're hiring the people who are not necessarily the best for the job, but because they fit some token.
Right.
And just because there might be like a small number of people who would be a female who's the best salesperson that could get hired doesn't mean they're not wrong about the fact that those like most of them could get pregnant. And I don't call that sexism. I call saying a woman could get pregnant facts.
Yes, but it also negates hiring the best candidate for the job. So the same reason, it's the same reason for both sides, right? You put DEI in place so that you might get the best, so you have the opportunity to get the best candidate for the job, despite past prejudices. And I will also say that especially in like STEM fields, right, where there's a lack of female representation, science, technology, engineering,
and mathematics,
right? There's lack of female representation, not because they're not qualified and not because they're not the best, but because they know that the likelihood, they don't choose it because there's no future.
That's
because
what you're
even if
thinking.
they get it, they're not going to get hired because they're not hiring women.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think most women just are not drawn to engineering. Women could get an engineering job, but if it go to any engineering college right now, it's going to be like, I think 80% men.
Right. And again, that's because there's no future because they're only hiring men.
That's your guess. I think it's way more likely that women just would rather do things like, I want to go to college for English and read books.
If you say so.
I agree with Bonnie. It's women are more attracted to things that are not the STEM fields just naturally.
Okay. Well, pick whatever.
Except for maybe science.
Pick whatever field you want.
Garbage man.
Wherever they're underrepresented. Yeah, fine. Women are underrepresented in the garbage field.
We don't want to be garbage men.
That's what I'm saying. They don't want to.
We don't want to work in the oil fields.
It's not because I'm like, I won't get hired.
But if you set up a DEI program in the garbage field to attract women and you pay them whatever it is you're going to pay them, you may actually attract females into the field that are equal or better than the men who would not have entered the field otherwise. And now it flows back to the colleges where they go like, wow, maybe I can actually make a career out of this. And then all the tides rise because now you're training both men and women in a field that was previously dominated by men. Again, I'll say for sexist reasons or whatever reason you want to have.
I disagree that.
And then they get better over time.
Women who would be great at the job were ever going to get just told they can't do most of the jobs just because of sexist reasons. I think that's
the old boys club. That's how it was.
I think that without DEI, if some butch lesbian type chick wanted to do something like cutting down trees, that's something that women barely choose to do, that they were going to get the job if they're there and willing. You're just guessing that. You're just saying that.
There's a history of prejudice. This is like the similar conversation that we had last week.
That's the thing. We're having a.
You don't understand.
We're going in circles because
you don't understand that there's a history of prejudice.
No,
it's not
I
about
understand
women.
that people
It's
say that.
marginalized
Your
communities.
claim is just a claim, and
Last
my
week,
claim
this week is women.
just a
Last
claim
week
that
it
has
was
way
black
more,
folks.
Your claim is
There's
just
a
claim,
marginalized community,
and that's a claim. But
Yes.
you have no way to. You don't actually have
Read
any actual
a
thing
history
to
book.
back it up. Yes, the history books claim that.
Yes.
The history books claim the
and-
thing,
and
and I'm
yes.
telling you, women don't want to clean toilets in.
Then they
clean the
don't have
sewers,
to.
I mean, they don't have to, and if they get the opportunity, they're going to more likely not choose to.
Then it's not a problem.
It's not. That's why DI is useless and stupid.
The problem with the argument, for this is, so maybe it was used for that in the past, right?
It absolutely was used for
So,
that.
but places like Walmart do not need to have a DEI program. Women are not being shunned from Walmart, from working at Walmart. Women are not being shunned from, working at Chick-fil-A and stuff like that. Like, these places don't need a DEI program to hire Indigenous, Black, queer, trans women who think they're part of a DID system. Like, that's not a thing that's necessary.
They may not need it, but it's their right to have it.
But it's stupid.
And it's
Maybe.
stupid, and it's way more likely
For
to
certain
cause
places,
bad
maybe.
people.
Yes.
You have this idea that it's more likely to cause a great person for the job to get a job they would have otherwise gotten, but it's been shown tons of times that it's way more likely to get somebody who sucked the incentive to apply when they wouldn't have otherwise applied. And
It's
now we
also a
have
long-term.
crap
It's also a
pilots
long-term
flying
strategy.
planes.
It's also a long-term strategy to build up the skills for future hires and future generations.
Anybody that wants to go to college for something can.
Yes, but they will exclude things that they cannot get a job in if the job only hires straight white men.
So
that's the
that's an
prejudice.
assumption, especially
It's not an
2024.
assumption. It's based on history.
It's doing
And
the
it's
thing.
2024. It's not 1980.
You're right. And now we have to catch up because in 1980,
I don't think we have
you
to.
didn't
Why
have
do we need garbage women? We just don't.
You don't.
It's been fine without
you
it.
absolutely don't need garbage women. But if you hire women to do the garbage job,
It's like you haven't looked around and saw that everything's getting worse and not better.
again, it's short-term thinking. It takes time to get people to recognize that now there's a market for them in that field, and to go get the education necessary to be successful
That's
in
just a
it.
guess, since it says most of these sprung up in 2020. You don't know that. Oh well, in 20 years it's going to be much better.
So it does
It
the
will.
thing. It does what every single movement does, and that it starts out with like all these great intentions, what you're speaking of, and it goes so far to the ridiculous end of it that it's not useful and not.
Yes.
It's just not practical in any way.
Overdoing it is not practical in any way.
Yeah, and that's where DEI is at.
But that's what happens when the marginalized community has to take a step, right? We had the discussion with like the pride parades and all that other nonsense,
Yeah.
right? It's because they're so marginalized and so put down by like the general population in society that they have to go to the extreme to get the attention. If you didn't have
I don't think so.
If you didn't have all that prejudice in the past, you wouldn't need to do any of that.
So
Right.
what are the, like, for the pride parades, what rights are the people who want to wear fetish gear and stuff, what are they fighting for? Because they can get any job they want, they can get married, don't they have all of the rights already?
But at one time they didn't.
But they do now. So what are they fighting for doing these things?
They want to be naked in public because
Yeah,
they're
they don't rights to be
exhibitionists.
taken to public. Their exhibitions, fine.
All right.
Right. But it started because they were bashing gays.
Yes,
Like
but-
if you were gay, you were chemically castrated. Right. And they would like, this is wrong. But the general society was like, well, he's just a queer, so we don't need to do anything about it. Until they started fighting back and marching and fighting for like rights that everyone else had.
Yeah, until they started fighting back and marching, but not getting naked and putting their
But
buttholes
that's
in kids'
but
faces.
that's my point about the DEI thing is like, I'm a woman. In my
Yes.
life, I've never felt like I couldn't just go do whatever I wanted to do. So there's no need for this program to put me above somebody else who might be better for the job.
And even though my great aunt sat me down and told me how different things were, she's a lesbian and she is like 90 and she's still married to to a woman, and she's told me like all the things she couldn't do. It was like shocking that somebody who's alive that I knew was telling me like I couldn't get a bank account and all this stuff.
Marginalized group.
But they didn't need the all I'm saying is they didn't need the government, and they didn't need...
Government is not a... DI is not a government mandate.
I know. I'm not saying it was. I was saying they didn't need the government, and they didn't need extremes. Like
they did need the extremes.
You're saying that they needed to have buttholes in children's faces, and I'm saying that marching and books and talking in public was probably going to do it. And like now we're in an extreme with things like DEI.
And I'm saying you can overdo
not necessary.
it. I'm saying you can overdo it, but
Then
the purpose is to catch them up and then set the foundation for a future which they're able to go into those careers and will have built the skills necessary to be as successful or more successful than their male counterparts.
Maybe that is a guess, but so far they're just being crappy pilots. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Jagruti Dave. Opposition groups in Syria have toppled the government there, ending the Assad family's decades-long grip on the country. Trent Murray reports on the rebels' rapid takeover from Tel Aviv.
A real historical moment here in the Middle East after more than 50 years of the Assad family ruling Syria with an iron fist. Their rule and regime all came crashing down overnight as those rebels who had been making a lightning offensive from the north to the south of the country officially took Damascus, the capital. The real first realisation of that came when they took over the state television and radio headquarters, where an anchor announced to the nation that Bashar al-Assad had fallen and that those rebels were now in charge. What we've seen is a flurry of activity in this really fast-moving story, extraordinary pictures coming out of Syria showing millions of people on the streets celebrating the fall of Bashar al-Assad, but also breaking into the presidential complex, into the residential wing where Bashar al-Assad and his family left, looters taking furniture and fine china and cutlery and even clothing.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's now deposed leader, is reportedly seeking asylum in Moscow after opposition groups took control of Damascus. Dasha Chernyshova has more from Moscow.
We have seen several Russian news outlets quoting the source in the Kremlin saying that Bashar al-Assad as well as the family of the ousted Syrian presidents are in Moscow, where they have sought the asylum which has been granted to them based on humanitarian grounds. We also have heard this same Kremlin source suggesting that Russian authorities remain in contact with the military opposition in Syria. We also have heard the same source suggesting that there have been security guarantees issued by those military opposition in Syria to the Russian diplomatic mission as well as to the Russian military bases.
Here in Washington, President Joe Biden is praising the regime change in Syria. Lisa Carton reports.
Speaking from the White House Sunday, Biden called the collapse of Assad's government a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria.
This regime brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice.
Biden also warned there's a moment of risk and uncertainty over what comes next. The president outlined continued U.S. involvement in Syria to help establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward an independent nation that serves all Syrians. Biden's remarks came after a coalition of rebels captured the Syrian capital of Damascus.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Lori.
And Richie Rich.
And I am going to go to phones, and I hope David knows that I was leaning towards answering his call over Sarah.
No, you weren't.
But then he hung up.
Ladies first.
You're on the line. You're on Free Talk Live. David, what's on your mind?
Lori got banged.
I did. Yeah. I got banged.
Oh my God.
Bangs. I said bangs.
I thought he said bangs, but
no.
Lori got bangs.
She didn't get banged. She got banged and bangs, but I said bang.
It's true. Both counts.
Oh, lucky night.
I'm sorry. Well, no, she didn't get banged on. Well, did you, Lori?
She just said it's true on both counts.
Said true.
No. You're jumping to conclusions. I said on the same night.
Oh.
Did you get banged the night you got bangs?
I don't know. This is privileged information now.
And this was also like she got her bangs done a few days ago. She hasn't been on the show in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have been like 2 or 3 times since the bangs.
She doesn't necessarily remember. I don't know. She doesn't want to say it.
Okay. Good enough.
You wouldn't remember from like a day or 2 ago?
Have you ever been married? I don't know. Sometimes things just
you
blur
remember.
together. I don't know.
Even if I was married, I think if I got some on Friday, I'd be like, yeah, that was Friday.
I
and
do the
Saturday?
show,
Yes, Friday and Saturday.
I do the show, and hours after, someone's like, "What did you talk about?" And I'm like,
"That's completely different."
Yeah, it's different.
But it's like everything for me is I don't know what day it was when something happened. I know Thanksgiving was a Thursday because it always is.
That's true.
Anything else on your
Have
mind,
sex
David?
Saturdays.
Anything else besides if Lori got banged? Of course. Think I called about that?
Yes.
Well,
it's very important news.
Yeah. No. Now, well, first of all, I 100% agree with Sarah.
On what?
She is mentally ill.
Her friend? Okay.
Oh, that's funny. Does she say that tonight?
Doesn't she say it every night?
She said it before, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying. She doesn't have to say it, but I think she says it every night, doesn't she?
I think so.
I guess
I don't know
so,
if I hear it
she
every
says
night.
that
She says something about like, I got bipolar.
Yeah, she doesn't say it every night, but you agree with her that she is mentally ill because she claims that she can't work because she's got bipolar. She doesn't even. I feel like we've talked to her long enough that I can actually say she's always the same. You know, it's not like one day we call Sarah and she's irrationally like manic and way different than the next day.
Those are the nights she doesn't call.
I don't know. I think she usually calls, and of course that doesn't mean I'm literally able to actually decide that, but she doesn't seem like someone with bipolar to me. And I've known 2 people with bipolar. She's just making an excuse not to work, in my opinion.
You're entirely correct. You're entirely correct, Battle Angel fan.
What does that mean?
Well, for us to know and you to find out, or maybe not find out, but you are correct, Battle Angel fan.
Battle Angel? Is that what you said?
Battle Angel fan.
Oh.
Not Battle Angel fan. Isn't that right, Battle Angel fan?
Oh, is that the Alita movie from like years ago that they were supposed to make a sequel and haven't released? Or the anime?
If you don't know, we ain't telling. Joke's on you.
I remember Alita Battle Angel being a weird movie with like a chick with really big eyes based on like some anime, and then was, you know, they left it at a cliffhanger for like 10 years now and never put out another movie. And if you're talking about the
Never
same
heard
thing,
of
look it up, Alita Battle Angel.
Yeah, well, Battle Angel fan is a Battle Angel fan, so.
So are we talking about the same Battle Angel?
No, I'm not Battle Angel fan.
Okay.
How old is this show? Because I feel like whenever I'm on the show with you guys, I find out about a new cartoon from the 80s.
This is not from the 80s.
Oh, when's it from?
Probably the teens, maybe.
2000 teens?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Not
Never
the
heard of it.
19 teens.
Yeah, that's
Go
a good
for three,
point.
Chris?
What's that?
Chris says we should go for 3.
Go for 3?
Yeah.
Can you do that? Is this the XFL?
Chris
Yeah,
Reitman?
yeah, we can.
Chris on Wednesdays?
Yeah.
What did he
That's the
say?
ticket.
That we should go
He
for
said we
3?
should go for-
What does that mean?
No, I said we should go for 3. Chris said 2.
3 what?
Can't tell, because then we can't make fun of you.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So, power. And Bonnie said something that I was going to comment on, but then that mentally ill Sarah called and made me forget what I was going to what Bonnie said. So now I don't remember what Bonnie said. But
Shouldn't have hung
Dang
up. You would have got picked first.
Yeah, I was gonna actually pick you first. Not even joking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
Not next time,
what?
though.
Actually, there was a strategy to that because I hung up as much because you might pick me first, then you would pick me second. Because I prefer to go after people. I don't like people waiting behind me.
So that way, you get a lot more time, and then also you can comment on what they said.
That's right, Battle Angel fan.
What is that? I don't understand what it means. Even if I've never seen the show, you haven't explained what it means to call me that.
We don't care whether you understand, Bonnie. It's our own little language.
Esperanto.
Yeah, it's Esperanto.
Yeah. So back to
Sorry,
power,
bro. I'm just not
power.
into Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah, you're correct, Battle Angel fan. So power, Bonnie, and you said something about the cops, and help me try to remember what you said about the cops, how they're kind of screwing things up. Besides the obvious way, was the lesser obvious way that cops are screwing things up. And while we try to figure out, New Mexico, while we try to figure that out, let me ask you, along the lines of power, that radio, the walkie-talkie that you have in the background there, that can be used for power. How do you guys use it?
For power?
They are confused.
It's unplugged right now, but
They use it for
usually
communication.
Yeah, to talk to Chris.
I know that. That's kind of
Well, you asked.
obvious, but
Why'd you ask then?
What else would I use it for?
Don't ask dumb questions that you know the answer to.
No, okay, then let me ask a smart question then.
I don't know if that's
do you
possible.
use it how do you use it strategically?
I don't.
To bypass the normal communications that the cops might be listening into.
Is that its main function for you guys?
I mean, there's like one dude here that really likes to talk on the walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
And I don't have one personally, but I've been around where people tried to reach out on cell phones and couldn't get a hold of somebody, and then the message comes over on the walkie-talkie, hey, if you're around Ian, can you have him call me?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, Ian is reached.
Yeah, or the other way around, where me and Ian reach the other person who wants to use it's usually just two people.
It's just Chris.
When Ian is out of a jail, it's just Ian and Chris.
Right.
Chris,
Cool.
I always
So-
hear
so
Chris
that's-
asking his boyfriend, like, if he wants him to bring him home dinner.
Because they don't want to use the
Okay.
government airwaves.
I don't know if this is privileged information. Now I feel bad.
No, he talks about it. Chris talks about that.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so how far away, without giving away Chris's azimuth, how far away approximately, and you can give a range so we don't know exactly how many miles away Chris is, but how many miles away is Chris when he's talking to you on that walkie-talkie?
Like less than 5?
They've also got repeaters around town.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I mean that's an important lesson because if these people want to do us like really dirty, the walkie-talkies can help make it so that they are less likely to pull it off.
Yeah. There is this awesome idea that this young guy was pitching at Liberty Forum last year, and it's not his invention really, but he wants to popularize it, and I really want one. But the thing is, I couldn't get a hold of him, and then the person I got a hold of about it, has been dropping the ball. and it's this little
phone, yeah.
like radio, and he can put it in different plastic printed things, 3D printed things, and some of them are really cool shapes. I feel like it'd be like having an old school beeper or something. And then you have an app on your phone, but you don't need internet. You just need to be able to power your phone. Then you can use that app connected to this thing in this little like radio that he has.
It's like a mesh network.
It's called a mesh network, yeah.
There you go.
And I really want one. And if all free staters walked around with those, imagine like the other people, the non-free staters, would be like, "What is that little thing she has?"
I don't know
want
who
one.
you were talking to, but at least in Manchester, Patrick Bender was.
Yeah, I hate him.
You hate
he
him?
can honestly go kill himself. I don't
Okay, well, never mind then, because he was the one who was like a big proponent of that in Manchester.
I don't know if it's the same exact one, but yeah, Patrick Bender was telling people at the Quill, they were like, "Well, when Ian Freeman gets out of prison, he wouldn't be welcome at the Quill anyway."
Okay,
And
I
then-
didn't know he had beef with him, but I was just trying to
And
get
he
to
also
someone
told
who
me
like was into the
publicly-
technology.
He also told me publicly that no one should care what's happening to Ian.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm your friend though, Bonnie. Why the heck is he my friend? He's just some weird old middle-aged guy I barely even know that has like a huge ego."
Say no more.
And then
But he's a good contact from Mesh Network for everybody else listening. If you don't have beef,
and when everybody told him like that's not true, we would allow Ian back, he started being like, "That's not really what I meant, and I wasn't saying that I wanted that to happen." Just like a coward and a loser.
all right.
We have another caller on the line, David. Did you have anything else on your
Did
mind?
not think it was going to go in that direction, but all right. I'm not even going to come to his defense because that's your personal beef with him.
I don't even know who he is.
But if you wanted to get into mesh networking, he would be a good contact in Manchester.
My
Well,
contact
there's-
is very
there's
lazy, apparently.
Yeah, well, there's more to be said about that mesh networking on a different night. But the thing on the cops is the main point that Bonnie made it, whether she knew it or not, and it's one of my main, whatever the word would be, points. Not the word I was looking for. Huh?
I was going to say
What?
pet project, but no.
Pet peeves.
No,
Yeah, I was
well,
going to
not
say
a-
pet
no,
peeve.
not
That's
a
wrong.
pet. It doesn't matter what
Pet
the word
subjects.
is. The point is that I tell the cops this to their face. I say that the reason we have crime is because you exist. Because when you exist, you disallow us to stop the crimes ourselves.
Yeah.
And when we call you for help because somebody's committing a crime right now, you never get here in time to bust them because you never have. And so therefore, you are the cause of this crime.
I
don't know if I completely agree with that.
I agree that without
I assume
cops,
so. You said it.
we wouldn't have crime because they have to create laws that are quote unquote crimes, and then they have a monopoly on defense. So at least we have way more crime because cops exist.
That might be true.
Yeah.
But again,
All crime
in
ever.
the absence of cops, there will be people that violate the non-aggression
Use
principle.
the analogy, the mesh network that you have. That's actually the exact analogy that I use. A network is how you defend against crime. What we have with cops is hub and spoke. It's centralized. You need decentralized crime prevention.
Okay.
Yeah, mesh network is like decentralized.
Or it doesn't have to be decentralized. It can just be like in an open market, right? Like there's cops.
No, those are not the same. It can be in a private market or whatever your words were, Richie. I agree with you. But
Then why are you saying no? I didn't even
also-
finish my point.
Okay, well, then finish it. I'll shut up.
I was saying that we have cops, we have private security, and there's like a company, I think it was in Detroit several years ago, that was making a little bit of a splash as a private call me up when you're in trouble company. Like they were on-call security that interfaced like police, but they charged you when they showed up. So if it wasn't like a real physical emergency, there was a disincentive to call them for nonsense because you had to pay. But if you were like in trouble and needed to, and it's not decentralized, right? That's a centralized company and they're just a service provider. And if you had competition, you would have more service providers and it still wouldn't be, it would still be centralized, just open in a free market.
So it would be a little bit less centralized if you have more providers. And then the ultimate would be that I have the same powers of arrest as a cop does. And also, if I abuse those powers, I suffer the consequences.
Well, that's what we had earlier with Daniel Penny, right? He exercised the same power as a cop did, and according to our other caller, Jet, abused it by going above and beyond what was necessary to repel the threat.
Well, yes and no. Jet is correct. He should have, and he probably did know better. But two things on that: if the cops had 45 other arrests they did on that guy, if they would have taken care of the problem one of those other 45 times, the guy would be alive, right?
That's probably a fair statement. Sure.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. Also,
I hadn't heard that. 45 times.
Also, the law also has an already existing doctrine of contributory negligence. And if the black dude, sorry, Jerome, if the black dude hadn't been doing what he was doing, then
doing black things.
Pardon?
If the black dude wasn't doing black things, he'd probably still be alive.
It's unfair to call threatening people schizophrenically while on drugs black things.
All right.
And I don't really think you'd think that. You're kind of making a joke, but...
Because he apologized for Jerome just because the dude happened to be black. It's a little racist.
Sorry, Jerome. Yeah, that is. That is.
David?
Damn, David the racist, man.
We know. We know.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
okay. Well,
Not as bad as Scott the Bigot, if you remember that character.
Yeah, I was thinking about him tonight, how we used to have him and Jerome on the same call. Or that happened once. Ian put him and Jerome on the same call. It was so funny.
That's fun.
Oh,
Hey,
so
speaking
funny.
of racism, you remember trailer number 1?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that came after Shed number 1. Then it was trailer number. You remember trailer number 2?
Okay.
Yeah.
We're talking about his
Remember
personal
trailer
life now.
number
He had the quad trailer.
Okay.
Do you remember trailer number 3?
Yeah.
You remember trailer number 4?
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't know there was
Guess what? Guess what?
Is there 5?
It's now a pentagon.
Trailer number 5.
Did they really build it into a pentagon where there's like a courtyard in between the
They're going to
trailers?
sacrifice you, David.
It's an upside down
so.
pentagram.
That's impossible.
Depending on what side you live on.
Right, where you stand.
They're Mexicans. They can build anything, Bonnie.
That's like the kind of racism that is funny because it's like, that's not insulting. You can build anything. Master builder for good at
Master
that.
what?
Master builder.
Builder, David.
I'm not good at that. I thought you said something I am good at.
We know.
Yeah, everybody knows, man. I put it on OnlyFans.
Ew.
I've not seen the OnlyFans.
Did you make $43 million last year?
The Speedo pic on Twitter was enough for me. It's like the most David I've ever wanted to see in my life.
I've been spared. David only lives in my mind.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this
as a picture. I've never seen what he looks. Oh wait, somebody showed me a picture
his
of
face,
what he
but
looked like.
he didn't have the Speedo pic on
It was
Instagram.
just his face.
Okay.
And I already forgot what it looked like.
Just lucky woman.
David, are you blonde or brunette?
Well, I'm smart like a brunette, but I'm blonde.
Okay, I thought so, but a lot of the times I'm like, yeah, that person's blonde, and then somebody tells me, what are you talking about? His hair is clearly brown, and then I look at him again, and I'm like, why did you just have like blonde vibes to me? I thought you were blonde.
Does the carpet match the drapes?
Does the carpet match the drapes, David?
No, because the drapes get shaved.
Okay.
So it doesn't stick out in the Speedo.
No,
I
you
mean,
don't want
makes
all that,
sense.
you don't want all that rumply stuff, on your nice tight Speedo.
Do you just live
take your word for it.
in the Speedo or something?
It's hot there.
No, usually I'm naked, but I put it on occasionally, Bonnie. Why?
When he has to go wandering around the pentagram.
Yeah. I don't see how it's a pentagram.
Do you own a mankini, David?
I not only own one, I invented it.
How are you comfortable being nude with all of these rats running around?
They nibble.
Because they're all soft and furry. Like
Didn't you tell me that one nibbled on
like
you?
gerbils.
See?
What?
Didn't you say the one
What do you
nibbled
think
on
he
you?
uses to shave the drapes or the carpet?
Did somebody say nipples?
Nibbled
like bite
with a B.
Oh. There have been plenty of wild animals that have nibbled on me, but I don't know if I don't think the rat in particular, any of them nibbled on me.
We have a story that Richie Rich brought in that was going to be about how a family pet hamster bit somebody's dad and killed him.
Almost killed him.
Almost killed him.
When I was a kid, we got a new hamster from the neighbor, and it was a male, and you could tell they were so big. It was disgusting. I was like, what is that? What's going on with him?
I had a story about rats too, about PETA is going to protest Nosferatu because it promotes shameful stereotypes of rats.
What?
Mm-hmm. David, are you a member of PETA?
He loves rats so much.
I am, and it's all lies to get a reaction, Battle Angel fan.
Anything that causes harm to a living human being, we must be against.
Oddly
or a living thing.
Related to exactly what you're saying. Today, I saw that Azalea Banks, you guys probably don't know who she is. She's a rapper. And she was like, oh my God, it's so good when she first came out. And then all of a sudden just fell off. And now all she does is like fight with people on the internet. And it's actually kind of funny. But she had a lawyer contact this guy who's also famous from the 1975 named Maddie Healy. And she was claiming that he had threatened her, and I don't know, I didn't see the messages where he threatened her publicly on the internet and then deleted it. And then the lawyer letter, I read that her lawyer was claiming that Maddie Healy, this guy, also used racial insults against her, and the example that the lawyer gave was calling her a rat, and she's a black woman.
What?
And I was like, I've never in my life heard this. No, but that is a great guess. I didn't think of that. But when I finally found the answer, I just asked. I said, genuine question, genuinely asking. I've never heard that rat is a racial insult. Can anyone explain? Because I think Maddie Healy looks way more like a rat, a white guy with like greasy hair and a big nose, than any black person. That just doesn't come to my mind when I think of black people. And somebody replied and said that they said she's wearing he said something like she's wearing a wig like a rat.
That still doesn't make any sense. I've never seen a rat in a wig.
Doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
So yeah, you're talking about stereotypes about rats, and then I saw that today, and I'm also
rats wear wigs. That's one of their harmful stereotypes.
That's one of their harmful stereotypes. I also had a conversation today where we were talking about Chinese zodiac or whatever it's called, like not zodiac, they don't call it that, but I am a fire rat.
Oh.
And I've always, when I was a kid, I was like, ugh, I'm a rat. That
I
really
think it
sucks.
is called the zodiac, isn't it?
Oh, it is? The Chinese, their New Year thing? I don't know.
Like the years, the Chinese
years?
You're the dog.
I think it's called the zodiac.
Chinese zodiac, they call it that.
I'm a dog.
Oh, you're a dog? That's a good one.
I think me too.
I love being a rat now, but being a rat, and as a kid, I was like, that's gross and weird. But now I think of it as like sneaky and smart and tiny and cute. Right,
You're also
David?
not really a rat. And if you follow those things, you're just weird.
Yes, Angel, you're correct.
I'm really a rat, a fire rat.
Neptune is in retrograde.
From like the fire swamps, like ROUSs?
What is that?
Oh, like from The Princess Bride. ROUS, the rats of unusual size. They live in the fire swamp.
Oh, I've never seen it. I know. Everybody. That's one thing that like people say you need to see it, and I actually would watch it.
It's such a good movie.
But
it's probably the most perfect movie there's ever been made.
Whoa, that's crazy. That's a big claim. True. I hear such good things about it that I do want to see it, and now we are totally just shooting the poop. But
Vamping.
We do have a caller on the line, unscreened caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind? Oh, they hung up.
What a waste.
Nothing.
You had like the last couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And you blew it.
David, do you have anything else? I didn't hang up on him.
Yeah, just
smart.
Have a good night, Battle Angel fan. You're right. You're exactly right.
It's about time you recognize that.
Yeah.
Yes.
What, I'm right about the fact that I'm cute and small, smart.
Not you, Bonnie. Angel.
Okay.
Angel is.
You called me that, or no? You called me a fan of it, whatever the heck it is. Well,
yeah, I called you.
Quick, David, what's your opinion on DEI? Real quick.
DEI. I'm a fan of it because I want to see airliners flown by nothing but black female lesbians.
Okay. So that's diversity, equity, inclusion. It gets a thumbs up from David because he wants nothing but black female lesbians, not male lesbians.
That's right.
But female.
That's a thing now, apparently.
Oh, well, I was just making a joke.
And
about
now
this.
that they're hiring them, black female lesbians will go into aeronautics and train to be pilots, and will get better over time.
And they will be so much
just
better
unfortunately,
than anyone else.
until then, all the doors have to fall off the planes.
It's a rough patch to get through, but you got to get there at some point.
As funny as it is, to be fair, that was more the people who work on the planes getting lazy and saying stuff like, oh,
the black female lesbian engineers.
Could be.
Same thing.
Actually, it's like,
now that they can get hired, they will improve over time, and everything will be better when they get there.
Thanks for listening to Free Talk Live. Definitely go online and Google Pork Fest and the Free State Project if our interview with Eric Brakey interested you in that at all. Thanks for listening. You can go to freetalklive.com for more, and peace.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where